Welcome to another massive episode of Submission Radio. It's the 23rd of February. Dennis Scrowded here with Kasper Zalowski. We have four big guests for you guys this week. We're not underestimating it by any means. We have four big names. Cass, who can the people look forward to this week on Submission Radio?
Well, guys, coming up first, we've got the co-main event, one half of the co-main event, I should say. Raquel Pennington has been gracious enough to come on the show and give us some of her time. She's obviously hard in training camp. We're going to be chatting to Raquel about what it's like to be co-main eventing UFC 184. Now, UFC Fight Night Adelaide just got announced recently. The main event is Mark Hunt and Stipe Miocic. We'll get our good friend Stipe back on the show. We're going to be chatting to him about Mark Hunt and, what his feelings are on fighting in UFC Adelaide. One of our favorites, Pat Cummins. Dude is hilarious. Every time he comes on, he's going to be fighting OSP over in St. Preux UFC on Fox 15. He's going to be on the show. It's been a long time. It's been way too long since we spoke to Pat. And then a new addition. I feel like this is Street Fighter and a new challenger approaches. Henri Hooft, head coach of the Black Zillions. Dude's had over 100 fights. Absolute legend. And of course, the head coach, head striking coach at the Black Zillions. We spoke to him a little bit earlier. I believe it was a couple of days ago. Dude was literally on his way to Brazil with Rashad Evans and Michael Johnson before UFC Brazil. But we're going to be chatting to him, or we spoke to him, but we're going to be playing that interview. Spoke to him about a lot of things. Anthony Rumble Johnson, MMA fighters, how they would do in kickboxing, Vitor Belfort, how he's looking after TRT, whole bunch of things. We got a really big show. I'm excited.
That's right, guys. And we also talk about Curls winning his main event fight at UFC Brazil. He doesn't have a nickname, Cass, so I came up with one for him. Of course, nice. Frank Mir. He's got those wonderful curls. A woman with a perm job would kill for those curls. We'll be talking about the whole fight card, breaking it down. Cass has something he wants to have a bit of a chat about the cards. Are they watered down? Are they not? The pay-per-view structures and his thoughts on it. Cass, I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on this because we haven't actually spoken about this before. I hope we agree on some stuff. I hope there's no big Submission Radio debate about this. I have a feeling we'll agree. Also, guys, Twitter, Submission AUS. We always love getting your tweets and comments. Feel free to tweet us anytime about what you think about this episode or anything else. We're available on a whole bunch of channels like TuneIn Radio, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Cass, which other ones are we available on? We're across a whole bunch of them, aren't we?
Those are the main ones. I don't even know which other ones were available on, but pretty much all of them. That's all you really need to know. We're pretty much on every single aggregator. We're like Skynet, the Skynet of MMA shows, but we're good, and we don't have killer robots.
That's what Skynet said, and then we also what happened.
Yeah, it's true.
So, we do not have killer robots. And guys, such a big show, so much to get to. We got our first guest on the line, and we're excited to have her on.
All right, guys. Our next guest is coming off an impressive victory over Ashley Evans-Smith and is fighting Holly Holm in the co-main event at UFC 184. She's a contestant from The Ultimate Fighter, Raquel Pennington. Welcome to Submission Radio.
Hey, how's it going?
It's our pleasure to have you on the show, Raquel. We really appreciate the time as obviously we know how busy you are with your final preparations for your fight with Holly. It was a bittersweet moment when Chris Weidman got hurt. Obviously, it was a fight that everybody wanted to see, but at the same time, it really helped bring a lot of interest to your fight in the championship fight's absence. You're no stranger to having big fights, but how excited are you to having the whole world watching you take on Holly Holm?
It's completely exciting. I feel like all the hard work has finally paid off, and this is a fight that I definitely asked for. A lot of people, they give Holly a ton of credit. She's riding a huge hype train, and I feel like she's just kind of coming into my home, and she hasn't truly been tested with another elite athlete and females into the UFC. I feel like she's kind of overlooking past everybody, just wanting to jump for that title shot. It's exciting. It sucks that Chris Weidman had to take an injury. That's never fun, especially being an athlete. But, with the fact that it's going to be a night for the women that night, I think it's going to do great things for women's MMA, and I think it's two phenomenal matchups to bring the attention as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Raquel. It's going to be a great night for women's MMA. Absolutely right. Now, for some reason, a lot of the media hasn't really been focusing on you going into this fight. You're a little bit of an underdog going into this fight with Holly. How's that affected your preparations? Have you used that as motivation in your training?
It doesn't affect me at all. I'm not that fighter that's always been out there getting the publicity that all the other fighters do. I just enjoy what I do. I go train every day hard, and I go out and fight. I go out and perform. I've always been an underdog my whole entire career, so it's easy for me. It kind of takes the pressure off of me. I don't have anything to live up to. I mean, Holly's the one coming into the UFC for one, and she's carrying all the pressure. I have nothing to lose, and she has everything to lose.
Going into this fight with Holly, you know, let's talk stylistically. What do you feel are some of your advantages over her?
You know, I mean, Holly hasn't been in the cage for a while. She's obviously a boxer and great at what she does. Obviously, she's an MMA, so yeah, you're not only training stand-up. I mean, you're training your overall game. But as far as me as an athlete and as a fighter, I'm comfortable in the cage. I've fought on the elite level. I've been into the UFC. I mean, I just recently fought, so I think the cage shooters and stuff like that are out the window. I feel overall in MMA, I have a lot more experience than she does. If you sit here and you kind of look at our records and stuff, my record may be 5-5 or whatever, and her record's undefeated. But there's a ton of girls that I fought with undefeated records that I have under my belt. I mean, 6 of 9 girls that I fought are all into the UFC. So I think with that, and then coming off of being from Colorado, I mean, high altitude training, I don't know. I feel like I just have a ton of advantages. I mean, I know that she's going to be strong. It's going to be a fight, but I feel like I'll be the superior fighter that night.
Absolutely, Raquel. Now, you know, going into this fight with Holly, you know, a lot of fans are expecting to see you try and take advantage of her lack of experience in the grappling department. You know, is that something you'll be targeting in the fight, or can we expect to see you stand and trade with Holly as well?
It's a fight. You can never dictate what's going to happen. I mean, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to fight my fight. I plan to go in there and control the pace of the fight and just be that smart fighter. I mean, Holly, she's great at her stand-up and stuff, but I'm also not scared to box with her. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say box with her. It's different in MMA compared to boxing, so I'm not going to be scared to brawl with her, as well as wrestle or go to the ground. I mean, I feel comfortable in all areas. I'm constantly training that and constantly progressing in every aspect of this sport. We bring in girls from everywhere. I mean, I have phenomenal teammates. I've been working with the USA wrestlers, Olympians, and I mean, it's been phenomenal. So I really don't care where the fight goes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be an exciting one. The other thing is a win over Holm instantly catapults you in the division. You know, how have you handled the pressures of this fight? You know, is it something that motivates you, or has it been a little bit difficult for you?
It's definitely motivating. I mean, I love the fact of what challenge she brings to the table, and I love exactly who she is and how much it will boost my career with a win over Holly. I think with the whole thing of me being on The Ultimate Fighter, you are constantly under pressure. I mean, you got to sit there and you want to win. The next fight becomes more pressure. You want to win that one so that way you can keep advancing in the tournament. So back then, I kind of learned how to deal with that stress and that pressure of everything, kind of put it off. I kind of just put it as it's another day in the office. I mean, with a new sparring partner, until actually everything's said and done. I've kind of blocked that out of my mind so that way I have no pressure on myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you just mentioned that you were on The Ultimate Fighter. You were on Team Tate. Just wondering, what are your thoughts on Ronda Rousey? She's fighting on the same card as you. She's got a lot of passion and intensity, but that can sometimes rub other girls the wrong way. What are your thoughts on the champ?
You know, I think Ronda's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, she's obviously with The Ultimate Fighter, a lot of people didn't like how she was portrayed, but I also got to know her as a person, and I think she's a great person. A lot of people don't get to see us outside of our fight face. It's just who we are as a fighter and not as a person. But she's definitely one girl that doesn't care about anything. I mean, she has her eye on the prize and she stays focused. She doesn't let anything get in the way of that. And I think that's something admirable. I mean, not a lot of people carry that quality, and a lot of people aren't that strong-minded. So I think what Ronda does is great.
Yeah, you definitely can't deny that. And now you've obviously fought Cat Zingano, who obviously fights Ronda Rousey at UFC 184. Give us your prediction. Can Cat Zingano dethrone Ronda Rousey, and how do you see the fight playing out?
You know, anybody, the same way when it comes to Holly. I mean, she may have this undefeated record and stuff, but everybody is beatable. We're all humans, and nobody's invincible. I believe that the same way with Ronda. I mean, like I said, she has her eye on the prize, and it's hard to stop when a person's that determined. But it could be anybody's night. I mean, it's a 50-50 chance when you step into that cage. And if Cat's in the right mind frame, she put in all the hard work and she does all the right things, anything's definitely possible. It's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. I mean, Cat's a wrestler and a grappler. She's comfortable in that area, but Ronda's the same exact way. So I don't know. I don't really know exactly how I see it playing out too much. I can definitely say that either way. I mean, obviously my goal is working up to the top as well. I definitely want a title shot in the future, and I would definitely love a rematch against Cat. So I think it would work out all the better as far as me as an athlete and my career if Cat won the fight, and then I can ask for a rematch.
Oh, absolutely. And, Dana White has obviously said in a comment that he's running out of people to fight Ronda. But, let's say you do, like you mentioned, you do beat Holly or potentially Cat beats Ronda. The title shot in 2015, that's your ultimate goal, isn't it?
It definitely is.
And I just want to ask you, looking at women's MMA, obviously UFC 157 was the first time we saw Ronda Rousey defending her title in the octagon. And so many years ago, obviously Dana White was so adamant about not bringing women into the UFC. And now you've got UFC 184, you've got the main event and the co-main event, the women's title fight, and obviously a very pivotal fight in the women's bantamweight division. What are your thoughts on that? And is it something that you always expected to happen, or is it a little bit surreal for you?
Women's MMA has really grown within the last couple of years. I think it took a while for Dana to obviously come around to women fighting. I mean, a ton of people still have their opinion about it, but I think it's awesome where women are taking off. I think that we have a lot of passion behind things. We put on good shows, and I mean, I think it's only going to continue to grow from here. We're going to continue to put on those great shows, build up fight cards, bring more attention to the sport. It's not just a male sport anymore.
Now, Raquel, we're going to do something fun with you to finish out the interview. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. We throw some fun questions at you, and you basically just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Let's go for it.
All right. Okay, here we go. Your go-to submission in training?
My go-to submission?
Yeah.
Triangle.
Give us one funny moment from your experience on The Ultimate Fighter that we didn't see on TV.
When we completely rearranged our house, we had our late night crew, which was me, Jessamine Duke, Shayna Baszler, Anthony Gutierrez, and Cody Bollinger. Everybody else in the house went to sleep, and they were coffee addicts. Everybody. That's what they looked forward to in the morning, where it just seemed like nobody can function, and everybody was always like trying to keep the house organized and do different things. So one night on our late night, we just decided that we were just going to completely take the whole entire kitchen and it set up the kitchen table, everything, and we were going to move it out of the house. We brought our outside patio with the fireplace, the grill, put that there. We hid everybody's coffee. Roxanne was into her whole, building little dolls out of, the toilet paper and paper towel rolls, and so we, hung them up, and we just acted all crazy. I mean, we were kind of getting delusional in the house, but we had to have some laughs, and I don't think everybody else took it as such a funny thing, but we found it hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, Raquel, Cris Cyborg, if she makes it into the UFC, is she someone you'd be happy to match up with in the future?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like I said, every female brings a different challenge, and everybody's beatable.
Now, Raquel, we read you couldn't play sports very often when you were younger due to a broken back. How did you break it, and how is the back now?
I broke my back snowboarding. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. But the sad part about it is it's not even a cool story. I mean, we just got done playing in the terrain park, doing all kinds of cool tricks and flips and stuff, and then we're coming out and just riding, and I was actually fixing my glove and went across the sheet of ice, the edge of my board hooked, and spun me backwards. I fell and broke my back that way, gave myself a concussion. But it's actually phenomenal. I mean, every now and then I have to say when I'm not training and I'm being more of a bum going on vacation and stuff, when I'm not keeping my body active, I feel like I'm about 90 sometimes trying to get out of bed, but other than that, my back's pretty good.
Wow.
Well, let's talk about this vacation. We saw you had a nice vacation in Disney World. Help us in the debate here on Submission Radio. What's the best ride in the park?
Best ride? I don't even know the name of it, honestly, but I'd have to say the best memory of a ride that I had was on that, it's like the Tower of Doom or something, the haunted hotel thing. We took my mom, and we actually went out there on a little bit of family vacation. My little brother was proposing to his girlfriend, so that's why the whole family kind of gathered out there. And we took my mom and his new fiance onto this ride. And me and my little brother's been to Disney World before, so we were kind of just scaring them completely, especially because they didn't like drop. So it was funny. We were standing in line for probably a good 30 minutes and just terrifying them. And then we go on this ride, and me and my brother are laughing so hard that while we're dropping through the air, we were just like losing our breath. So I'd probably have to say that one was it for me, just because we had a blast.
You poor brother.
If you ask Dennis, it's going to be any Batman ride any day. Now, you're an avid shooter, Raquel. What's your favorite gun to shoot?
My favorite gun, I'd have to say I actually like shooting my 9. It's really smooth. I mean, it's a simple gun, very basic. But we actually have a gun. We call it our cowboy gun. It's a shotgun, but it's a short barrel shotgun. Really small. I have a picture of it on one of my social nets. This thing looks like a little kid's play toy gun. It's so small, and this gun will knock the crap out of you. It's super fun to shoot. I mean, it's easy to handle. You can sit there and spin it around, play with it, act like you're this awesome cowboy, and then the minute you shoot this gun, it's going to knock you around.
Kids don't try it at home.
Yeah, I like to pretend I'm a thug and shoot my gun sideways. Now, what's the most listened track? What would you say is the most listened track on your iTunes, Raquel?
Most listened track on my iTunes. I would have to say lately it's been "Hold You Down."
Who's that by?
I don't know. It's either that song or somehow I love country, so I listen to a ton of country too.
Right, you were hoping we knew what that song was, didn't you?
It's settled. All three of us don't know who sings that song. Now, Raquel, you're known as Rocky. We all know Rocky 1 is the best, but what's the worst Rocky movie out?
I don't know. I haven't really watched the Rockies in too long. I actually like to watch Rocky 4. I mean, just because it's a little bit more motivating, but I haven't watched them in so long. I can't even remember what order they go in, honestly.
Yeah, I don't like that one where he fights the guy in the back alley. Yeah, you know, it just didn't please me.
I'd have to agree, actually.
Yeah, that's not a good one. Now, Raquel, for everybody listening around the world, what's your hidden talent? What's a talent that we don't know about?
Hidden talent. I don't know. It's hard to break down when you're pretty talented.
It's even hidden from yourself. Hiding it from yourself, Raquel.
Yeah, exactly.
You're yet to discover it. What's the first thing you eat after the weigh-ins?
First thing I eat, everybody's like, we don't understand. I usually have a bowl of soup and a banana, and then I drink coconut water and Pedialyte. And then my meals, actually, I love steak. I'm your steak and potatoes chick. Always have been since I was little. So I go out for a nice juicy steak, sweet potato, load up on a little bit of carbs, and then continue to hydrate.
But Raquel, do you break a cracker into that soup?
I do.
Well, then it's officially a meal.
Now, Raquel, we have to ask you a serious question in the tap out round to finish out the interview. We want the official prediction. How are you beating Holly Holm at UFC 184? Give it to us.
How am I beating her? I'm either going to go with everybody sitting here saying that she's a phenomenal stand-up fighter, so the ultimate goal would be to knock out Holly Holm, or a nice finish the same way that I finished Ashley Evans-Smith.
Well, with a prediction like that, guys, how could you miss UFC 184? Make sure to follow Raquel on Twitter at RockyPMMA and watch her at UFC 184 against Holly Holm on February 28th. It's going to be an exciting fight. Raquel, thank you so much for coming on the show, and best of luck in your fight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Smooth Benson Henderson. You listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest is a UFC light heavyweight who is some of the best wrestling in the division. He loves pancakes, and he will be fighting over in St. Preux on April 18th, 2015 at UFC on Fox 15. Returning to the show is none other than Pat Cummins. Pat, it's been a long time. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm good, other than the fact that I missed you guys, and we don't do this often enough.
I know. There's been a huge void in our lives that we're hoping to fill today by having you back on the show.
Well, I'm glad it's the same on your end.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put myself out there.
And, and have us not reciprocate. Well, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, we haven't been cheating on you with other UFC guests and stars, Pat. You know, it's just they make us do this. We just want to do a Pat Cummins show where we just have you for all 4 segments. But for some reason, the producers just won't let us do it, those bastards. Now, before we start talking... Yeah, that's it. So before we start talking about your next fight, Pat, I just want to have a chat with you a little bit about your fight in Brazil. It was pretty crazy. You put on a great show, and I think you even won over some of those crazy Brazilian fans. What was your experience like fighting in Brazil?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's funny you say that because I was expecting to come in there and get some hate, and I was kind of like preparing myself to fuel the fire from that. Just be like, whatever. You know, I want to hear the boos, and it's going to pump me up. But even at the weigh-in, you know, it was kind of like a little mixed. It wasn't some of the guys that were really throwing hard, and then you know when I came out, it was a little mixed, and I was just like, wow, I was expecting much worse, and I was actually hoping for much worse. But then after the fight, yeah, everybody was so friendly. I think I made some Brazilian fans, and it was a great experience too.
What about after the fight? I mean, you know, I'm sure you were celebrating at the party after the event. Did you get anyone acting sassy to you, you know, during the celebrations, Pat? Any sassy Brazilians?
That was sassy Brazilians. But what I will say is Carlos Antonio, the guy that I fought, his brother pulled me aside in the crowd while I was walking back to the locker room and congratulated me. I talked to him for a couple minutes.
Wow.
I mean, he wasn't sassy, but he was. It was just like, wow, what a really good dude, and you know, both of them. So it was really that was cool to that was a cool experience for me.
Good to see he wasn't trying to hold you up so that one of his friends was like to try and stab you or anything like that. Now, your first few fights.
Well, you know what? The after party wasn't all there either because I think I ended up fighting at like 2:30 in the morning on Brazil time. So we didn't get back to the hotel till like 5, and by then, you know, it's bedtime for this guy.
You had to go to one of those all-night Brazilian raves. Now, your first few fights in the UFC, they came very close to each other, and you said that you wanted to make up for lost time. How did it feel before your last fight to have a 6-month break? You know, did you go a bit stir-crazy, or did you enjoy the rest?
No, you know, I didn't. I don't think my break was that long. I can't remember what it was. But no, it felt okay. I was able to train a bunch and kind of, you know, sand down some rough spots and get my game back to where I needed to be. And so I'm mellowing out a little bit. I don't need to go too much. But at the same time, I still am hungry for that experience, and I'll get in the cage anytime.
Well, I mean, different fighters do different things between fights, you know, like, I mean, I'm not taking any shots, but Johnny Hendricks has been very vocal how he wants to live his life and he can't always, you know, stay in the gym. How active have you been in between fights in terms of training and improving as a fighter?
Pretty active. I mean, I also like my time out of the gym, but I think I think that's good for me. You know, I'm not one of these guys that just wants to go pound a bunch of cheeseburgers and, you know, go to the movies and just kind of like live my life like that. You know, I'm pretty active. I love to ride my mountain bike, and I can't help it. I actually end up losing weight when I'm not in the gym. So
wow.
I think it's good for me. It's good to get a little break, a little disconnect from that, and just kind of like relax a minute and then crank it back up for your next camp.
Hey, Pat, in training, we've seen that much like GSP, you do a lot of gymnastics. Apart from doing impressive backflips after you're done burning someone in a verbal confrontation, you know, how does this help you when it comes to fight time?
Gymnastics is it's also one of those. It's kind of a break from the gym. You know, there's so often you know you're crushing weights and you're just grinding it out in the gym, and you want to break. So part of it is like you need that mental break, and you don't really realize you're working hard in there because it's so much fun. You know, I'm flying around and jumping off trampolines and landing in a foam pit. You know, whatever it is. So it's fun, but at the same time it is difficult, and it works your body in a different way. And I also think it really helps with your spatial awareness. You know, when you're flying through the air, and you know you can spot your landing and whatever. It kind of helps you be aware of things around you. I think that translates over to MMA.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously gymnasts are incredibly strong, and thus far you've been extremely dominant inside the cage. You know, so far, have you felt any opponent match or come close to matching your strength in the cage?
No, not. But you know, at the same time, I'm trying to keep the fight in my realm of strength. So when the fight's on the ground, when I'm on top of somebody, of course I feel incredibly strong. And when someone's on the back, you know, it's tough to feel like, oh wow, this guy's really strong, or whatever the case. Mm-hmm. But I know when I fought DC, I just felt like, wow, his hips are super strong. There was no way I was getting close to the takedown attempts that I had. There's no way I was getting close to a takedown. So he's powerful in his own right, of course.
Yeah, apparently he likes cake and chicken as well. Now, you know, every time we speak about you, Pat, on the show after your fights, me and Casper are always going, we want to see him have a big step up at competition. We want to see Pat get another big guy. And now you have OSP. You know, he's a well-known guy, a tough dude in there in the division. Everybody knows who he is. How did this match come together, and how excited are you to fight OSP?
Yeah, I mean, this is all along. I've always said, you know, I just want to keep getting better, keep fighting better guys, and keep moving up the ladder. And yeah, I got what I asked for, which was awesome. And they came to us with Joe Silva came to us with the proposition, and you know, immediately we jumped on it. So the fight happened in a couple hours.
Well,
so I was pretty excited about it.
The interesting thing about it is you guys obviously both have strong wrestling and grappling, you know, styles. Who do you think has the grappling advantage, and do you think that the grappling might get cancelled out in the fight and we may see a stand-up battle?
I mean, of course, I feel like my grappling's better than everyone's. But no, I mean, I've been watching the film on him. He's dangerous in a couple places, but no, I feel like that's going to be my strong suit, and it may in fact be on, you know, a more of a stand-up battle, but you know, I'm preparing for every situation. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of preparing, you know, striking is something that you've told us you've really wanted to work on. You know, how has your striking been coming along in training, and will you be looking to display some of it on April 18th against OSP?
Yeah, absolutely. My coaches my striking coaches are pretty awesome. They're really great at implementing my style with their skills and their techniques. So my Muay Thai coach, his name is Mel Minor. He's a world champion. You know, he's a little guy, but he's a world champion. So his technique is really, really on point. And he understands me as an athlete, and I think that's really important too. And my boxing coach is the same way, Danny Perez. He's really, really good at, you know, he recognizes that there's really no room in MMA for pure boxing technique. So it needs to be blended. It has to be some type of hybrid, and he's been great with that. And yeah. Every time I get in there, I want to. That's the area that I want to improve in. You know, I want to win the fight first and foremost, but yeah, I definitely want to showcase what I can do on my feet.
And you know, April 18th, and it's going to be a great time to do it. OSP obviously recently knocked out Shogun. It's a pretty brutal knockout. Is OSP striking of any concern to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's a long, explosive guy, and you know that I would say striking is his strength. So there's a couple things I'm gonna be careful of and kind of maneuver around. But at the end of the day, I'm more concerned with what I'm gonna do, how I see the fight going, where I want to take the fight, and you know, I recognize that there's threats, but at the end of the day, it's about me.
Obviously, OSB, such a talented athlete, so much natural length in him, without giving us the game plan, because we don't want OSB to listen to this and then, mess up the fight and it's all your buddy Submission Radio's fault. But, just give us a couple of keys. What do you think are a couple of keys to victory against a man like OSB?
I think he's very left side dominant. So he throws kicks and knees with his left, and of course that straight right hand you expect from a southpaw coming down the center. So obviously I want to be aware of that, and just I also think that he's not at my level when it comes to conditioning. So if I can push the fight, really bring it to him, I think I'll be in good shape no matter what.
Now, Pat, you made some headlines recently when you said that you'd like to see you and OSP do random WADA PD testing going into the fight. What was your motivation behind that?
Right. Well, it wasn't. I would have called this guy out. I think he's doing something wrong. Yeah. It was more just. I think we as athletes need to step up and kind of take responsibility and say, hey, listen, we're not. We're willing to do whatever it takes to clean up the sport a little bit. All the recent bad media, with guys testing positive and things like that. I just think it's not good for the sport. And I'm in the UFC. I represent them, and I want to make sure I do that in the best possible way. And I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, for sure, Pat. We just want to catch your reaction on this. We've spoken to a few fighters about it. Everybody, Casper compared it to kids finding out Santa Claus isn't real. What did you think when you heard that Anderson Silva did test positive for steroids? And also, give us your thoughts about the new sanctions the UFC are talking about with giving guys 2 to 4 years suspensions for the first-time PED offenses. Do you think it's a good thing?
Yeah, I was pretty shocked. My reaction, because you don't think of. You think of Anderson Silva as a very fluid, great striker, just and just an incredible athlete. And I just think, wow, this guy doesn't need that. But at the same time, he's coming off a horrible, horrible injury. I know a lot of people put a lot of stock into, when it comes to getting better, rehabbing an injury. That can be the quickest way to do it. So, I kind of understand, but also I think. You got to come. If you did something wrong, you should admit to it. So, I don't know. That's my thought on it. But as far as the, couple year suspensions and things like that, I think that's a good thing. It may be harsh for some people, but in all reality. It should, this sport should be, martial arts to me isn't, it's not a sport where, that should be, people should be using drugs and really trying to, cheat. I think it's just, I don't know. It's just, I guess I hold the sport of MMA a little too high in that regard, but I'm looking. Whatever they decide to do, I'm behind it 100% because I don't have a care when it comes to that. I'll take a drug test anytime and I'll always pass it.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting that you mentioned that stuff about Anderson because me and Casper were talking on one episode about the whole situation. And I think the thing that we spoke about that bothered us most was, the fact that he denies it all. Now, we don't know whether or not it truly happened, but it looks like the tests show that it did. I guess we discussed the fact that if it's true and he really did do it, it'd be great if he could just come out and discuss it openly and explain he made a mistake rather than deny it. That's probably one of the aspects that's a bit difficult about it, isn't it, Pat?
Yeah, I think anytime, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, and I've, just from experience, that when you come clean and you admit to what you do, it makes things a lot easier. People tend to respect that, and nobody's perfect, and everybody makes a mistake, so it just takes a little, you just kind of man up and say, okay, hey, I screwed up. and just ask for forgiveness, I guess.
It's definitely going to be interesting. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens with this whole 2 and 4 year suspensions thing. I just want to switch topics. Go back to your division. Recently, one of your favorite guys in the world, Daniel Cormier, fought John Jones for the belt. Did you watch the fight, and what did you think of the fight in general? What did you think of Daniel Cormier's performance?
I did, yeah. I watched the fight. I was actually a little shocked because I thought Daniel could win the fight, and I thought that his wrestling would be a lot more dominant. But I was a little surprised. But at the same time, I saw, when he was attempting those takedowns and wasn't getting them, I could see where that's going to tire a guy out. And as soon as it came to the 4th and 5th rounds, and that's a place that he's never been, and John Jones has been there, I don't know how many times, 8, 9 times now. So he knows that area really better than anybody else. So at that point, I kind of thought, well, that could be a wrap. But yeah, it was a good fight. I don't think Daniel showed as well as he could have. I have a lot of respect for him as an athlete, and it'll be interesting to see what happens from this point on.
Yeah, Pat, Jones is certainly an impressive challenge. And here we go. If you beat OSP decisively and have another big win, you may very well be in the title picture against Jones. Just wondering, how would you tackle the John Jones puzzle, and where would you hold an advantage over Bones, in your opinion?
I think I would really want to push him. I'd want to push that pace. And I think Alexander Gustafsson did a great job with kind of nullifying his range and distance by getting close to him, staying in his face as much as possible, and really using his boxing more than anything else. Because I think Jones is obviously, he's very creative, and he can adapt to a lot of different situations. But I think his strong suit on his feet is his range and using his kicks effectively. But I think if you make it a little more of a boxing match, make it a little ugly, I think there's room for me to score some points in there.
Very interesting. It'll be great to see if that fight does happen. Now, Pat, we're going to do probably your favorite thing in the world, the Submission Radio Tap Out round. Bunch of fun questions. We fire them off at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I've been waiting for this the whole time.
Yes. All right. We saw a bit. Yeah, it's like enough of the
filler,
standard.
The filler
it's all about the tap out round. Yeah. Here's the main course. We saw Michael Bisping gave you a nice present early this month when he gave you a bit of a shine accidentally with his thumb. Tell us, how did this all happen?
It was just one of those little accidental things in training. I've been working on my head movement a lot, and so I was flipping a punch, and I slipped a punch, but the thumb got me. And Mike's funny because every time in the gym, he's that guy that he's had some serious eye injuries, so he's always like, fingers closed, everybody, on MMA day. Fingers closed, everyone. Fingers closed. I don't want anyone poking me in the eye. And then, of course, he's the one to do it to me.
Yeah.
But, he's such a good guy. He's such a great guy to have in the training room. So, I'll let a couple of those slide.
Yeah, well, these thumb pokes, Pat, it's a bit early to start getting ready for your John Jones fight. Okay, so going on to the next question. We see by your Twitter that you're a bit of a mountain biker. Tell us, what's your favorite place to ride and why?
My favorite place to ride? That's a tough question. I have a couple, but I really like, there's a place called the San Clemente Single Track, and it's basically just right next to the Marine base down as you go towards San Diego, and it started off as a bunch of trails that were kind of built illegally, and then the county came in and opened it up for everyone to use. So that's I would say that's probably one of my favorites. And I just did this the other day. It's called the San Juan Trail. It's a really highly rated Southern California trail, but I only do it every once in a while because it's a bear of a workout. It's about 3,000 feet elevation gain.
Wow.
And it's about Yeah, it's about a 20 mile excursion.
Jesus, yeah, it's
so
definitely...
I can't, during training camp I can't do that, but I can fit it in where I can.
I like the sound of the one near the Marine base. It sounds like the Fight Club of like mountain biking. Like you go there, you don't talk about it. First rule. Next question is: will berets make a comeback in 2015 as the ultimate fashion accessory?
Absolutely, and I feel like I could be the poster boy for that.
The forefront of the beret movement, Pat Cummins.
Yeah,
Well,
why not?
You look great at the weigh-ins. I think you got to keep it on the scale there when you do the weigh-in. That's the key. Now, there's a couple of other famous people by the name of Pat Cummins. One is an NBA player, and the other one is a Aussie cricketer. Believe it or not, what is it about the Cummins? Yeah, that's right. There's an Aussie cricketer. He's very popular. What is it about the Cummins name that brings such greatness?
Well, where do I even begin? No, I don't know. You know what? I just recently somebody said they brought the Australian cricketer. I guess he's a pretty famous guy, and they said every time we search for you, this other guy's above you. And I was like, really? So I feel like I at some point I need to hang out with this guy and have some type of conversation. Maybe we are related, but no, I think he's also very handsome, and that's also it's not just the athletic ability. I think it's the good looks really shine through as well, and maybe the personality too.
When you say that you have to hang out with him, I feel like it's that movie, The One with Jet Li, where there's all those other Jet Lis, and it's like every time he kills one of them, he becomes stronger. So just
gonna annihilate all the other Pat Cumminses.
Yeah,
you want to be number one of that list, Pat. Let's not lie, all right?
Yeah, we're gonna hang out.
Yeah, hang out, inverted commas. Pat, when is Pat Cummins growing out a nice mustache?
Ooh, I had a pretty burly beard. I probably just got rid of a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But I was thinking about hanging on to the mustache, but I don't know. I feel like I need to do something different. I need to be a little more avant-garde. Maybe that's where the beret fits in. Not so much in the facial hair, it's the headwear.
Yep.
Now, Pat, explain this to us. What is it that motivates a UFC contender such as yourself to give someone a DVD of Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse as a gift?
I mean, where isn't the motivation there?
Well, I guess it's settled then.
I just feel like there's such great action, and there's so much. There's so many epic quotes. For example, my favorite is "Pain don't hurt." I think that can be applied to MMA in just about every way.
Well, we'll be expecting at least one or maybe 15 of those quotes in your Joe Rogan post-fight speech.
All right, that sounds good. I can deliver on that.
Now we want the truth, Pat. All right, the ultimate truth. You or Cub Swanson, who really catches the biggest fish?
I'll tell you the truth. He pulled in a monster fish. I couldn't even compete with it. So he won that, but I think I caught more. So depending on, I think my weight total outdid his, but he got me for the big guy.
Yeah, that's right. It reminds me of like when we used to be single. We used to go out, and there'd always be a guy that gets a good-looking girl, and then there'd be a guy who gets a lot of girls. They may not be the best, but it's always the question: substance versus capacity. How many you get? This is what they look like. It'll be debated for many years. It's been debated by the Greek gods for many years. Now, finally, Pat, we want to get the prediction. We want to get the official prediction from you. How is Pat Cummins beating OSP at UFC on Fox 15 on April 18th? Give it to us.
Well, I am sick and tired of decisions. I've had 2 in a row, and those are the only 2 that I've had. So I need a stoppage, and I'll be getting it any way possible. So don't look for a 3-round war from me.
Well, there you go. We'll definitely be watching UFC on Fox 15, April 18th. And obviously, don't forget to follow Pat Cummins on Twitter at @officialdurkin. We'll see him kick some ass at UFC on Fox 15. Pat, as always, absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's do this more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, this is Frank Mir, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Coming off an impressive battle with Junior Dos Santos, our next guest will be fighting Mark Hunt in the City of Churches, Adelaide, May 10th at UFC Fight Night 65. Returning to the program, let's welcome Stipe Miocic. Stipe, welcome to Submission Radio. Welcome to the show. You're fresh off a trip to Germany. Tell us, how was that whole experience and how are you going?
Oh, it was great, man. You know, there's a lot of people are big in MMA, man. It's getting big there. You know, got legalized. It's great, man. It was a great trip.
We know Germany's famous for, I think, lots of meat dishes and lots of beer. Did you partake in any? Did you have any crazy stories you can tell us, Stipe?
Oh, nothing crazy, man. Just I had beers and some good food. It was a good time, man. It was good people there, man. A lot of good people there.
Well, you know what, Stipe? We want to touch on something. Well, actually, we want to break something down. You have one of the best Twitter accounts going around, and if you aren't already following Stipe, you can at Stipe Miocic UFC. Oftentimes on Twitter, people see the finished product of a tweet, but they don't know the man behind the tweet or the motivation and the emotional journey that led to that tweet. So we've taken a few random tweets that we're going to put under the microscope and ask you about. All right, Stipe?
Sure.
All right. February 19th at 2:18 p.m. Kill him with kindness. Stipe, who are you killing, and why is it kindness that's your weapon of choice? Why not like a crossbow?
No, it's okay, man. It's how I do it, man. There's, just it is what it is, man.
Okay, Stipe.
People out there and just kill them with kindness.
No killing with kindness in the octagon. But okay, next tweet, December 17th, 12:38 a.m. Wakes up, checks Twitter, sees a random guy telling him to F off, calls mom to tell her I made it. There's also a haters gonna hate pic with an awesome guy on roller skates. Stipe, what was your mom's reaction when you told her, and how did she feel about getting a call at 12 in the morning?
Oh, I love me no matter what, man. It's what I do, and she's known me for 30 years of my life, and she's everything. She don't nothing surprises her anymore.
February 19th, Stipe, 1:40 p.m. This one's fresh. You'll probably remember it. Hey guys, I'm fighting in May 2. Hello, guys.
Yeah, I was just trying to get some more support.
We thought that because maybe, recently there's been cases where the UFC have switched opponents on fighters and the fighters weren't notified. We thought maybe this is the first time where a fight was booked and the UFC weren't actually aware of it.
No, not at all. No, nothing like that at all.
All right, just checking.
Yeah, no.
Now, final one, Stipe, before we get into the meat of it all. January 14th, 3:12 p.m. At Slick Tim to Stipe. Yo, dog, word on the street is you like cheese puffs. Stipe's response, the streets are wise. Stipe, just how wise are the streets?
I keep it gangster, that's all I gotta say.
All right, well, everyone on the internet, you got to get some memes happening for Gangster Stipe. Let's talk about the fight against Junior. Both of you guys took a tremendous amount of punishment, and to a lot of people's surprise, it went to decision. Looking back on that bout, what did you think of the fight?
Oh, it was a great fight. It was a great war. It just didn't go my way that night.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you surprised he was able to take some of your shots? How badly did he hurt you with his?
I mean, honestly, you're a tough guy. I knew you could take punishment. He's one of the best in the world. That left hook he hit me with when I fell, that actually didn't bother me at all. It looked worse on TV than it did when he hit me because I was standing straight up. So that's why I fell. But listen, he hit hard. There's no question. He's one of the hardest hitters in the division. But I felt fine the whole fight. He was one of his best uppercuts. I was perfectly fine with it. I hit it and kept coming forward.
And now, what did it feel like going 5 rounds for the first time in your career? A lot of guys say that it takes more out of them than they expected. How did you find fighting for 25 minutes?
Terrible. 25 minutes is terrible. It took 25 minutes. It was brutal. It's hard, man. It's like the hardest things to do. And I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm happy I did it. I knew I could do it. There's no question. I was ready for it. I think doing it for the first time, took a lot out of me. Next time, this fight's be different. I'm gonna be ready for it. I know what to expect, and I'll be ready come May 10th.
So, Stipe, you fight a guy like Junior. You put on such an amazing war. Obviously, 25 minutes. Tell us what's that number one thing that you learned from that experience? What's the number one thing that you went back into the gym and you wanted to work on after that fight?
Well, I think my confidence, because I knew I belonged there, but I think proving everyone wrong too. Everyone's agreeing knocked down the first round. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I went toe-to-toe with one of the best strikers in the division, showing I'm not even backing down, and I'm ready to do this. And, I'm going back and, a lot of things I need to work on. I think every aspect of the game, I think a little bit more More dirty boxing, I think I need to work on a little bit more. I could do a little bit better in the cage, and it is what it is. You live and you learn, and what kills you doesn't make you stronger.
That's true. And, the big news that came out recently was obviously the fight announcement. You'll be fighting Mark Hunt on May 10th in our lovely little country of Australia, Adelaide to be specific. What are your thoughts on Mark as an opponent? Oh,
yeah, he's one of the best. He's a veteran. The guy's been there, done that. He's fought the best in the world. He's tough, can take a punch, can hit hard. And, I'm super pumped when I heard about the fight. I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a great fight. I'm so excited.
Yeah, before we get into this fight, I'm just wondering, did you get a chance to watch his fight with Fabricio Verdum? Because that was a pretty interesting fight. Mark took it on late notice, went over to Mexico and almost won it. Just wondering, what were your thoughts on that fight?
He was doing great. I think, he took it on short notice, which always sucks. But he was doing great. Just got caught on me. It's part of the game. Anyone can get caught.
Stipe, you were able to withstand punishment from Junior Dos Santos. Does that give you more confidence in standing toe-to-toe with Mark and being able to withstand his shots?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. I don't think I want to stand with anyone in the heavyweight division toe-to-toe. I'd rather do my game. But, it definitely gives me more confidence. But I'm not going to sit there with my hands out and chin out, hoping, show them I can take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Stipe, you're a really nice guy, and you never say anything badly about anyone. And Mark is a very respectful guy, but he recently said in an interview with our own Sydney Telegraph that he does plan on knocking you out cold and putting you to sleep. Just wondering, what are your thoughts on those comments? Because obviously they're pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're pretty super. Are you going to kill him with kindness? Are you killing him with kindness right now? Is that what you're doing?
Listen, man, he's one of the best. He can say what he wants, and I like to just fight. That's what I do. I'll bring a pillow if he wants me to. But listen, man, you can say what you want. But I just look at it. Thank you. Because I'm gonna give you a hell of a fight. Hope he knows that.
Well, it sounds already like it's going to be
backing down.
It sounds already like it's going to be a classic. In the fight, do you think we're gonna see you rely on your proficient striking, or do you think you'll try and exploit Mark Hunt's grappling?
I'm gonna win the fight. That's about it. Bottom line, I don't care how it's going to happen. I'm going to win.
Well, let's have a look at Mark Hunt as an opponent. Obviously, a very strong fighter, a lot of great qualities. What do you feel like you do better than Mark Hunt? What are your advantages in this fight, do you think?
Well, I think my speed, my angles, definitely better on the ground, but he's also a veteran. He's got a lot of good veteran skills, and he knows how to fight people. And, I think it's just my speed and my quickness and my agility, my athleticism, and my groundwork. I think I could, do a lot of different things.
Now, I want to get your opinion on something, because a lot of people, have this opinion of Mark Hunt's alleged weakness on the ground. He had some brutal submission losses early on in his MMA career, but nowadays, he seems to willingly go to the ground with guys like Stefan Struve and Fabricio Verdum. Do you think Mark's ground game is as easily exploited as people may think?
No, definitely. He's a tough guy, man. He don't care. He goes for broke, and he's gotten better on the ground too, and listen, he's still gonna be dangerous on the ground, on top or bottom, and I'm not gonna take any chances. I'm gonna do my game and do my game plan.
Obviously your fight with Junior Dos Santos, Stipe, was a classic. Just wondering, is there anything that you learned from that fight, from your fight with Junior, that you think you might be able to take into your fight with Mark?
Yeah, actually going 5 rounds. And just we worked on a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff we've been working on. The minute we were on the plane, actually the minute we left the casino, whatever the arena, we talked about a lot of things we need to work on. And that's what me and my coach. That's why I love him. We sit there, we don't talk about having a good time. We talk about what we can do next, and worry about the other stuff later. But we have a good thing we're doing right now. I'm excited.
Now, the other question is, you fought in the US, UK, Canada, and Brazil. How does it feel knowing you'll be fighting in Australia, and you're excited to check out the country?
Yeah, I've been there twice already, actually. I'm excited. It's new place. It's called me the world traveler, I guess, and it's gonna be a great time. I'm super excited. I'll get there early, get accommodated with the time change and all that, so I can get rested up real good.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if you've been to the City of Churches yet, so that should be pretty exciting. Just want to get your overall thoughts, Stipe, on the heavyweight division. Obviously, you got Kane and Fabricio Verdum there set to battle it out. But, with a win over Mark Hunt, it looks like you may be, right in there in the title picture. Is the title a goal for you in 2015? Do you feel like this is one of the first steps to making your run at it, in Australia on May 10th?
Oh, 100%. There's no question. That's why I signed up for the sport. I want to be champion. That's what I'm doing.
Now, Stipe, we're going to finish up the interview with something fun. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. You did it with us last time. We ask you a bunch of fun questions, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Do it.
All right, dream matchup, any fighter from past or present, what would it be?
For me to fight?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't know. Oh, you know what? I never said I know I would fight, but I would love to, like, just train with, like, Sakuraba.
Oh, yeah, that would be amazing.
I'm training with Cole Cup actually in a couple of weeks, so I'm kind of excited about that. It's a dream come true. But, yeah, Sakuraba, man, I just love his style. He's so, like, awkward and just did crazy things.
Now, Stipe, last time you were on the show, you shared some cool stories with us. Any new firefighter or paramedic stories you can share with us since you were last on the program?
Yeah, nothing really too crazy, just the usual.
Just saving lives, putting out fires, saving cats and stuff.
Nothing too nuts, just the same old story, but nothing like I told you last time. But just doing the usual.
Any more people recognize you while you were saving their cat or saving their house from fire and stuff?
No, nothing like that. Not at all. Which is fine with me. I'm okay with it.
You're flying to Australia in May. Let's say hypothetically, if you could only bring 3 things with you down, what would they be?
My Xbox, my girlfriend, and my dogs.
How's that going to work? The Xbox and the girlfriend, isn't that going to be like a clash of styles?
I just got yelled at for that one right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he said
we both watch Netflix. We watch Netflix on Xbox.
He said Xbox before he said girlfriend. I just wanted to point that out. Now, Stipe, we saw you on Twitter. You were in an airport with a person walking behind you with a big sign with your name on it. Can we expect to see this when you arrive to Adelaide Airport?
No, but on the way home you will.
Speaking of Twitter, although you have lots of fans and once in a while, we see a troll. What's the biggest troll you've had to deal with on Twitter?
I think the one guy, he was just being such a D-bag. He was saying I told Anderson Silva before his fight, hey, break a leg, and that was the night you did break it, it's just stupid stuff. I got to delete it right away, so it worked out well. He was saying some of the meanest stuff, like stuff I'll never even say.
Sounds like a lovely guy.
Now, you mentioned Cro Cop before. What are your thoughts on the Croatian sensation, Mirko Cro Cop, making a comeback to the UFC?
Oh, it's awesome, man. I get to go train with him. It's going to be a great time. I get to go 2 weeks with him, learn from him. It's going to be a great 2 weeks.
What's the prediction? Cro Cop versus Gonzaga. What's happening in that one?
Cro Cop all day.
Now, thoughts on...
He's going to redeem himself.
I think that's what all the fans are hoping for. Thoughts on the Diaz-Anderson Silva fight, especially the part where Diaz laid down. It looks like it tickled your fancy on Twitter.
It's Diaz, man. I like Diaz. I think he's a great fighter. Actually, a really nice guy too. And it's what he does. And he just, people love him, man. It's what he does.
Hey, Stipe, give us your food. The one food that you would want to have when you're in training camp, the one that pops into your head anytime you're eating one of those crappy salads. Well, what is it? What's that one food that you just struggle giving up during training?
Pizza.
Yeah, we literally
love pizza.
We literally ordered 3 pizzas last night before bed, so we feel you big time.
There's no bad pizzas either, Stipe. There's bad pizzas, but is there really ever a bad pizza? Is there really ever a bad pizza?
No. Never. It could be crappy and it's still, even if burnt, I'll still eat it.
You can you can eat it hot, cold. It's like in that movie End of Days where Arnold Schwarzenegger's waking up and he's making that shake with everything random and he throws a pizza slice in the blender as well. You just can't go wrong.
Yeah.
I think
you can't. You got breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
I think that's part of the new Dolce diet. Just saying, Stipe. Now, the Submission Radio marketing department, Stipe, spends most of their time sitting around watching teen college movies from the early 2000s and wiping Cheetos dust off their T-shirts. Today, we've gotten them to actually do some work and come up with some alternative nicknames for you. So please choose one from the following nicknames so that we can alert Bruce Buffer in time for your fight against Mark Hunt in Adelaide on May 10th at Adelaide Entertainment Centre. Tickets available soon. All right. So the first nickname is Stipe Fists of Fire Miocic. Fists so hot from being a fireman.
Okay, I like that.
The next one, I'm glad you like that. Now, you're a fireman and the marketing team just watched Zoolander. Stipe so hot right now, Miocic.
Okay.
So hot right now.
Okay.
So hot right now.
That's pretty good.
I can see Bruce Buffer having fun with that one. Now, you punish people with your fists and you also spray them with a hose. Stipe the Face Blaster Miocic.
Oh, that's terrible.
Wow.
That's terrible.
You may know a lot about fighting, but you know nothing about hurting feelings, Stipe. The marketing team are leaving us right now.
Yeah, that's right. Some of the marketing team actually work for porn companies as well, Stipe. We just need to point that out.
Right? Oh my God.
Now, if Crow Cop can be Crow Cop for being a Croatian police officer, then surely you being a firefighter from Cleveland could be known as Clefi.
There you go.
All right, he likes that one. And finally...
It's possible. I could tell by the tone in his voice.
And you're killing us with kindness now, Stipe. And finally, Stone Cold Steve Austin, because why not?
Oh, yes. I'll just say Stone Cold. That'd be great.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. Tommy Toho will be very happy.
Now, finally,
Yeah.
Stipe, we know you're a super nice guy, but we have to do this. We have to get a prediction from you. We can't have you dance around this prediction now, Stipe. You have to give us the truth. How do you see it in your head? How will you be beating Mark Hunt in Adelaide, May 10th in the City of Churches? How's it going to happen?
Well, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to be me at the end of the night with my hand raised winning the fight. That's pretty much what's going to happen. If it's going to be on the ground, if it's going to be on the ground, on our feet, every aspect of the game, he's going to get beat at. I'm going to win the fight. I'm going to win.
Well, we'll be there covering it, and we'll be there live. We can't wait to see it. Once again, guys, May 10th, UFC Fight Night 65. Make sure to follow Stipe and all his hilarious tweets at Stipe Miocic UFC. So it's been a pleasure again having you on the show, Stipe. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin. Don't get submitted. Listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest is widely considered one of the best striking coaches in the world. He's a former K1 and karate competitor, and he has coached such champion kickboxers as Peter Ertz, Romy Bojanski, and Tyrone Spong, and he is currently the head striking coach at the Black Zillions camp, which features such guys as Vitor Belfort, Eddie Alvarez, Anthony Rumble Johnson, and Rashad Evans. He's none other than Henri Hooft. Henry, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you?
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I'm good. I'm fine. Nice you guys have me on the show.
Yeah, it is absolutely our pleasure. We want to talk to you a little bit about, what you do at the Black Zillions and talk about your career. Before we get into it, let's discuss your career. You've had over 89 professional kickboxing fights, which is amazing. What made you want to be a fighter? And tell us about how you first combined Dutch kickboxing and Thai boxing.
I started very young when I was, I played soccer when I was younger, and it was kind of funny. The trainer of my soccer team said when I was 14, 15, he said, yeah, you need to do something to get a little bit stronger. And I told the guy that already did Kyokushin karate, and he kind of didn't know what it was, that it was already strong enough. So I did a little bit of kickboxing with the karate, and then I did my first fight after 3 months, and I kind of left soccer and went on to be a kickboxer. And I loved it because it's a sport you have to do by yourself, and also just I'm a very technical fighter, so I like the technical aspect of it, the punching, the kicking, the combination they put together. And I never thought I would become like so far as a trainer or as a fighter. I just went in there like a nice hobby. It was nice. I did my school and everything, but along the way I just decided this is my thing. This is my passion, and still is after 30 years now.
Wow.
30 years in doing martial arts.
Now, Henry, obviously you were such a successful fighter in those styles. Just wondering, if MMA was as prominent back in those days when you were fighting, would it be something that you would have considered in fighting in? Would you consider fighting in MMA if it was as big back in the day when you were fighting?
Yeah. Well, if you had asked me that question, especially 3.5 years ago before I came to Florida, I would say no. But now I'm 3.5 years around the sport. The UFC, the fighters here, the wrestling and everything, and I think I would have done it. I mean, it's kind of, in the beginning you see it, you think it's kind of more violent than kickboxing, but at the end of the day, now I'm teaching the guys, I see there's a lot of stuff that's kind of similar. I mean, there are like different styles, of course, but still the same thing. One man trains hard to fight another man. There are some rules. There's a referee. The only thing is different. There's a cage and there's wrestling, but it's still very competitive, and it's one of the most competitive sports there is. So I think
if I wouldn't be scared to be taken down, I would do it, you know? I love the small gloves, though. If you hit somebody with small gloves, it's night-night, so I like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys get excited about that. You know, Henry, as a coach, I'm just wondering, could you explain to us, what are some of the subtle differences between incorporating kickboxing into MMA as opposed to just for, say, a kickboxer?
Yeah. There is some differences. I mean, I'm a very structured guy, so I always lay down first a ground floor on everything I do, and then I start building from there. And first, the stance is different. Of course, you have takedowns that you have to worry about. You cannot just so kick like in kickboxing. Sometimes you can react with a kick. That's different. But most of the things that I do are still punching and kicking and putting pressure on guys without doing really something. When to kick, at the right moments to kick or punch. And now I'm learning it a little bit more with our wrestling coach and our jiu-jitsu coach to put it all a little bit more together. Of course, there's much more transition from stand-up to wrestling, but still we have a style of stand-up fighters and Brazilians. We like to knock people out, so we don't really go for takedowns. I mean, we can do it, but we really prefer to just stand up and bang like what most of the people want to see. And not being taken down, as you see with Anthony Johnson and with all the guys in our gym. So I still think that there's a big difference, but if you do it good, step by step, you can put kickboxing in the same way, but with some small points that you have to change, But the basic stuff is still the same. I punch, I kick, look where the guy's going, and which moment I have to kick or punch, and not just do something without really thinking about what I'm doing, I'm a really structured fighter. In all my fights, I lost 2 times by knockout. And I did like 100 professional fights. Tyrone, that I trained for the last 4 years, didn't get knocked out when I was training. And Peter got only knocked out by Badahari at the end of his career when I was training with him. So I'm a guy who likes to be defensive and have a structured base,
Absolutely, Henry. People talk about Dutch boxing as being one of the toughest and most intense. Do you bring that same kind of training and intensity when you train guys at the Black Zillions with you?
Yeah, I mean, our sparring sessions are kind of hard. I think if you go to the Netherlands, every sparring session is a fight. I mean, we not try to knock people out when they're already on the floor, when they cannot defend themselves. You have to understand, these are all people, all fighters at the same level, all professional fighters who all signed up for this. So when we go in sparring, people go hard. First of all, you do technical stuff. When the technique is good, it doesn't need to be hard to knock somebody out or to knock somebody down. It needs to be precise. So that's a little bit stuff that you have to think about. But our training sessions are hard, and my mentality, again, I come from kickboxing and kickboxing. My mentality is just to work hard, be disciplined, and do very simple stuff all over again, same stuff all over again, and then it will work in the fight,
Yeah. The way you explain it, Henry, I can safely say if Dennis and myself grew up in Holland, we would probably be accountants or we don't a fish shop, not kickboxers.
That's nice to hear.
A lot of people consider the Dutch style of kickboxing to be the best style, and those sentiments are always echoed by guys like Bas Rutten and Joe Rogan especially. Alistair Overeem said not too long ago that he respectfully considers the Dutch style of kickboxing to be outdated and not used for MMA. I'm just wondering, what do you think about those statements? Do you think there's any truth to them, and is the Dutch style applicable to today's MMA?
Well, if Alistair says that about Dutch kickboxing, maybe he just had to stay here and train with me and not get knocked out every fight, I mean, he did everything by himself. He tried to change his style. I'm not going to talk too long about Alistair because he don't mean nothing to me, but it's like crazy, He comes here in America and he tries to do another style of fighting where he was very successful at. And he gets knocked out and gets booed and everything. And now he blames it on our sport. It's outdated. Well, I can tell you one thing. Look at Tyrone, look at Saki, look at Nicky Holskin, they're kickboxers. And look at my fighters. Look at Matt Mitrione, look at Anthony Johnson, look at all the guys that we have. Gilbert Durinho, Ryan LaFleur. So many people are knocking and kicking people out. Like, it's. I don't understand why people say that. I believe I have respect for every kind of aspect in MMA, everything, and Muay Thai, kickboxing, and we can all learn from each other, But I think that kickboxing, Dutch style kickboxing, is very good for MMA because we do everything in combinations. We not just kick or do something without thinking. We do everything in combination. If you set up kicks with your hands, it's very difficult to take somebody down if you get punched in the face first, So it is outdated. I mean, karate is one of the oldest sports in the world, and it works. Jiu-jitsu is a very old sport, and it works. The fighting sports are never outdated. It's the fighter who is outdated or just changes up after a loss. That's the funny thing I like about MMA, though. They lose a fight and they change the whole camp, trainers. They want to change everything. They never look at themselves or what they're doing wrong, you know? A fight is a fight. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And if you lose to a guy who's better than you, born with more genetic structure and everything, you can do nothing about it. If you lose a fight because you're stupid, then it's your fault. I mean, I'm a trainer. I always say that. I'm a trainer, but I not take all the credit. I just an extra pair of eyes. I make sure that you're fit, that you can fight, and that I see stuff that you don't see. But at the end of the day, when the cage is closed or you go in the ring, you're responsible for your own stuff. I'm already done. I trained you for 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 3 years or 10 years. Fighting, you need to do yourself, you know? So, again, I think Alistair left our camp. He never really trained with us, never trained with me. I never wanted to train with him. And that was maybe his biggest mistake. And that he said, Dutch kickboxing is outdated. I hope he said the same stuff when he's in Holland and talked to all the kickbox players, because they're all going to laugh in his face, you know?
Well, it's just one more question in regards to Alistair. You know, we have Bastard on the show very often, and he's often said to us about how he thinks that Alistair used to have this style where he had one hand up protecting the chin, and then he would have, you know, instead of combinations, he would throw one punch so that he could protect his chin. And he said that when he left Golden Glory, he sort of changed that style. I'm just wondering, you know, from a technical aspect, do you think that would, you know, that would be something that would benefit him, or do you think there's any truth to what Bas said?
Well, I mean, Bas has a lot of experience. He knows what he's talking about. He knows Alistair better than me. But I know one thing. I've seen Alistair fight a couple of times. Also in the beginning, when he was kickboxing, he got knocked out and knocked down by normal people. It's not about... He is big and he's strong. That's his strongest point, you know. And he has a good stand-up. He was a K1 champion. Okay, he was a K1 champion when all the guys that were very good were or not there, were older, but he won that championship. And if you have that stuff, you have good punches and good kicks, and you're not going to use it, you're going to walk around, you get knocked out by Ben Rothwell, or you get knocked out by Travis Brown. And I have a lot of respect for all these fighters because it's MMA. But as a stand-up guy, you make a fool out of yourself, you know. And again, personally, I have nothing against him because I have nothing with him. But as a fighter, what he shows now, especially in stand-up, and I said it's outdated, he just makes a fool out of himself, you know. I think when a guy like him is so strong, if he gives Ben Rothwell 2 hard low kicks, and he can do that because he did it if he gives him 2 low kicks, then the guy cannot walk anymore. But what he did, no, I cannot throw low kicks because maybe he's going to take you down. That means, guys, if you have the best weapons in the world, you're not going to use it because the other guys has weapons like that. I'm not a trainer like that. I'm like this. I have my skills, and they're so good that I don't care what you bring to the table. My skills will be better because I believe in my stuff. But he's changing every fight. He's changing something. And not only him, a lot of fighters. They lose and they change everything. It's not about that. So, for me, you know, it's all the same anyway. And it's Alistair. I mean, we're talking about. He's number 12 or what? He's number 10 at the heavyweight. He's supposed to be champion 2 years ago already if he just did what he was good at, you know?
Now, Henry, striking purists are often critical of MMA fighters and their striking when it's compared to kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. Just wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think the striking level is in MMA like? And do you think that any MMA fighters will be able to compete against, you know, the seasoned kickboxers out there?
Well, of course it's different because the gloves are different. They have very small gloves, you know. But I mean, of course, the MMA they have smaller gloves, you know. So when they hit you, then you need to hit you hard on a weird angle, and you're going to get knocked out, you know. That's the thing. And so you don't even need to be a good boxer or a perfect puncher. When you hit somebody, they're going to go out anyway, you know. But in my camp, Anthony Johnson, we train with Anthony, we train with Tyrone, we train here with boxing trainers like Pedro Diaz. Our guys can all box. Our guys can all fight, you know. So I don't think there's a very, very big difference. Only kickboxers can stand more in the pocket, have cleaner shots, and also remember the 10-ounce gloves. They look big, but they're not big. If you put them on, the patch in the front of the UFC glove and the patch of the 10 ounces or 8 ounces in kickboxing are nearly similar. Only they have more cleaner shots and they throw more punches. With MMA, you have wrestling, jiu-jitsu. So a lot of guys have all disciplines. And these guys are just only work with their hands and their legs. So, of course, there's a difference. But I'll put Anthony Johnson in a fight. I'll put some of our guys in a fight, for sure.
Like in a kickboxing fight?
Sorry?
You mean like you'd put those guys in a kickboxing fight?
Yeah, I will put them in a kickboxing fight, for sure. And you saw it before when Dynamite was there and Pride and everything. You had these cross matches. Like Musashi knocked out Musashi in Japan. You had some of these matches that worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. That'd be super exciting. You know, I want to also ask you, with all the spinning attacks we're seeing, you know, what do you think about the evolution of MMA striking and the direction it's heading in?
Yeah, that's crazy. It's beautiful. It's so nice to see that change. And everybody, you see, and it's, and again, old stuff, old techniques and everything, and that works, you know. Nice spinning kicks. Vitor's making spinning kicks while he's known for his hands. That's Dos Santos even. I mean, it's nice to see. It brings a lot of spectacular action, you know, that everybody wants to see. So I like the move that it goes now. It's a lot of striking, a lot of stand up. It's a lot of my work. Good for my work, you know. So I like it. And then people like to see stand-up wars. I mean, the groundwork is nice when stuff is happening, but most of the time people just want to see knockouts. That's why we're all in love with Mark Hunt. You know, you're a crazy guy. Everybody loves him, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Australia's own. We've claimed him, Henry. Now, let's move on to your coaching career. You mentioned that a few years ago you were more of a striking guy, and now you're the head coach at Black Zillions. What made you want to go over to the Black Zillions, and how did you first get involved with the camp?
Oh, I got asked by Terrence Fong. He was here training Rashad, and I have a gym in Holland with my brothers. So we have a lot of students, and I've had two big fights going on. Obviously, you need to come here because you need a trainer to help out. I'm a fighter. I can help Rashad out, but I want some structured plan. I want you to do it and come over to help Rashad fight. It was Tito Ortiz, I think. So I came over for 3 weeks to work with Rashad. I met the team. It was very small at that time. I mean, we had like 2 people in the UFC. And then the guy did me an offer, and I think, you know what, I'm going to try it in America a year, look how it is, still work with my fighters back home. And then I liked it so much and get a lot of talented people here, work with a lot of talented people, see the team growing. We have a great manager, Graham Robertson, who does a lot for our team. We have good facility. We have the best training partners, good trainers here. So, I mean, who doesn't want to work here, you know, doesn't want to work with these guys? And it's still nice. For me, it's a new sport, so I can put my passion in there. Kickboxing I do so long already, I still love it, but MMA now is my new passion. I want to be just one of the best trainers, you know.
Absolutely. Speaking of being one of the best trainers, one of your star pupils recently, Anthony Johnson, he came out and had a spectacular performance against Alexander Gustafsson. Did you think that that's the way the fight was going to go? Did you think he was going to beat Gustafsson that quickly?
No, I have a lot of respect for Gustafsson. He's one of my favorite fighters in the weight class. Movement is good, stand-up is good. But I always know that when Anthony will fight him or John Jones, he's going to connect one time, and he's going to knock people out. He's so crazy, amazing, strong, and explosive that you see that nowhere. You see that nowhere, you know. So I've said it before on television. I really think that AJ is going to knock him out because to stay 5 rounds away from that power is going to be difficult. So I think AJ is going to beat everybody on his path. I really believe that. He's going to beat John Jones, who's the best fighter in the world, but he's going to beat him. I feel that. I just know that, so.
We've seen Rumble put a tremendous amount of pressure on his opponents recently. That's something that sort of seems like a new wrinkle. How big of a factor do you think this will be in the John Jones fight? And do you think Jones will be able to handle Anthony Rumble Johnson's pressure?
Well, of course, John Jones is the favorite. John Jones is the best fighter. But, again, the pressure that Anthony Johnson put on you and then the knockout power, the sheer knockout power that he has is dangerous for everybody. That's why he has a good chance of winning and beating him and knocking him out. Because of that power and because of that rough, raw power, I think nobody else brought that. I mean, and he's so explosive. It's not like, the Brazilian guy who fought John Jones the last time. What's his name? I forgot his name. The Brazilian guy, the strong guy too. I cannot.
Glover Teixeira.
Yeah, Glover Teixeira. He has good hands, but he's very slow compared to Anthony, and not explosive. And Anthony has kicks, has punches. He's very explosive. So everything comes from weird angles, and it's so hard. It's unbelievable, It's so hard.
Yeah, Henry, with Anthony Johnson, he's been in the spotlight for a really long time. He's been someone that's always been looked at as a guy that's an up-and-comer, and everybody's always spoken to him about as a future champion. He's had a few setbacks, but he's finally showing all of his potential. He looks amazing in the octagon as of late. What would you attribute that to? What was the final thing that pushed him, into his potential? And do you think partially, him cutting the weight down to welterweight was possibly that huge mistake that kept him back all those years?
Well, I think I have a great part to do with that. I mean, AJ does everything himself, but I think I have a great part to do with it. Also, Glenn Robinson, his manager, who always pushed him, and our sparring partners, and Rashad, we all pushed him to the next level. But I was along with AJ when he didn't make the weight against Vitor Belfort, we were on the plane. It's a funny story. We never drink wine, and me too. And we started drinking wine. We were so drunk, and he made me a promise. Speak, I love you. You know, stick by me. You always train me. We're gonna make it. I said, let's go. We go to the small shows. I don't care Titan where we go, but we're gonna come back to the top, and then we're gonna knock people out. And we stick to it. We were 9-0 after that, and knocking people out. You know, so he made me a promise, and he never lets me down. That's it.
Well, the rest is history. To see Anthony Rumble Johnson, you know, what he's doing now, it's crazy. You know, I want to talk about another one of the guys that you train. You know, he is none other than Vitor Belfort. You know, he's going to be fighting for the title against Cris Cyborg, hopefully soon. You know, obviously they were going to fight at UFC 184. How has Vitor been looking in training so far?
Yeah, he was good. He was ready already 2 times for the fight. I mean, getting ready. I mean, he looks very good. You know, he trains hard. Everything is professionally very good. You know. Body-wise, you know, after that TNT stuff that happened with him, he just works so hard, and he's so dedicated, so talented that training with him is easy. He's like training, start training Shaquille O'Neal or start training Kobe Bryant, you know. He's so talented like Tyrone, you know. You learn him something, he picks it up. It's unbelievable. And the guy is 37 years old, and he's still as hungry as every young guy in the gym here. He's the first day in, very professional, takes his ice bath, takes care of it after training. Very professional guy, you know. And again, he's another one. We have 2 title fights in one night, and they both have chance to win the fights, you know. So Vitor's amazing.
Yeah, and you know, Vitor gets a lot of criticism because obviously after he got off TRT, his body looked a little bit different. I'm just wondering, as a coach, you know, are there any concerns for you? Obviously, there's a lot of fighters out there, and they're always talking trash about Vitor, always saying things like he won't be the same now that he's off TRT. Just to all those people with criticisms, you know, what does Vitor Belfort look like compared to back in the day when he was on TRT? And, you know, obviously, will there be any issues coming off TRT for him when we see him in the octagon next?
Well, of course, I'm not a doctor. I don't know about what his physique in the fight will be, but he looks great. I mean, maybe he looked a little bit stronger when he used the TRT or whatever they used. He looked a little bit stronger, but looking stronger and being stronger is a difference, you know. It is not about looking bigger and stronger, you know. He is just amazingly physique strong. He was already when he was younger, you know. He was already strong, so he's going to be okay. He's going to be fine. He's technically so good and he has so much experience that, again, compared to Cris Cyborg, Vitor Belfort is never going to be small. He fought at heavyweight, you know, so he's never going to be small. 37, your body's changing a little bit, but again, technically and powerful, he's one of the best, you know. So he's maybe the best, and in his weight class, he has a very good chance of beating him, Cris Cyborg.
Now, Henry, I want to ask you just more specifically in regards to Vitor, you know, what are some of the main things that you've been working on? You know, what do you think are the keys to victory for Vitor Belfort to beat Cris Cyborg?
Well, since Vitor came to us, I really worked a lot on his punching and kicking. As you can see in all the fights, he won every fight by a high kick knockout. I worked set up with some punches. So I worked on the punch and kicking, also a little bit more on the mental side of the things. Vitor's a guy who fight for a long time already, and I make him aware that he's a very, very, very talented guy, but also a very experienced guy. I put it in his head every fight that he goes in the fight, and I really have a good click with him. He trusts me. I run his training camp from start to the end, together with Jake Bonacci and Greg Jones, the wrestle coach. We do a lot of stuff. From the beginning to the end, I run it, and he trusts me with that, and the results are good. So you know how it is when you win fights, your stuff works. You keep doing the same stuff all over again, and we're going to do the same. We were doing the same stuff for Cris Cyborg. Of course, he's the champ, undefeated guy, strong wrestler. So we had some wrestle guys coming in to specifically help Vitor, strong guys, to work on the wrestling a little bit more than we normally do. But still, we do the same stuff. Still, we're training the stuff that we want to do. So nothing really changed. What I told you in the beginning, my coaching style is very simple. I start training you not for one specific opponent. I'm not really a game planning guy. I just want to make your style so good that you can beat everybody with it, you know. And whatever the other guy brings to the table, that's up to the other guy, because you never know what happened. You can train for Whiteman, you see, you got the fight got canceled, and you cannot take another fight because you're specifically training for some kind of guy. I don't believe in that, especially not with younger fighters. I mean, Vitor's a little bit experienced, so different a little bit, but younger fighters too, they need to just train all styles and fight everybody, you know?
For sure, Henry, and that's a great mindset going into it. Just wondering, recently, obviously, Cris got injured. How close were you and Vitor to picking another opponent at fighting at UFC 184? Did you guys get close to possibly taking another fight at UFC 184, or was it just a group decision?
I was in Sweden for that time. I was in Sweden for that time for a week, and I had to go to the Netherlands for a week to do my visa stuff. So he was already feeling bad that I was leaving 2 weeks. And then all that stuff happened. He Skyped me, and I said, just wait. I mean, Vitor's not a young guy anymore. He doesn't get so many chances to fight for the title anymore. Now he finally deserves it. Just wait for the guy. You're supposed to fight for the title, not the interim title, because that's not the real title. Not that he's scared or doesn't want to fight other people. Don't take that risk. You're 37 years old. You have a chance to become legendary, being champion again after so many years. Why throw it away? Just wait for the guy who you're supposed to fight, who has the title, and then fight the guy. That's it, you know?
Just one more thing, in regards to Cris versus Vitor, we already know Vitor's a great striker. We've seen it his whole career. A lot of times great strikers can get frozen by a good wrestler in fights. Do you think this is a danger at all that Vitor could face? And is it a concern of yours at all, being a coach?
Yeah, of course. You always worry about the fighters getting taken down. But that's what I mean. If you set it up good and you strike at the right moment, Dan Hansen was trying to shoot on Vitor and get caught by an uppercut and then get knocked out. I mean, if you're fast on your feet, we have a great wrestle coach now who's doing a lot of stuff together with me, so he kind of has the feeling when people punch and when people have to stuff takedowns, how to do it. And again, Vitor is so quick, so fast with his hands, and then with his kicks that I think we have a good game plan. I mean, we have a good style to beat Chris Weidman, but again, Chris Weidman is a champion. Shows up in every fight. His stuff is durable. It's going to be a very hard fight, but I still think Vitor can do the job.
Absolutely, Henry. Now, Rashad Evans, it's really sad because he just can't catch a break recently with injuries. There's a lot of people who are saying we might not see him have another title run in the UFC. Just wondering, do you see Rashad coming back for another title campaign after he heals up? And also, what weight class would he be coming back to? Obviously, Anthony, is dominating the light heavyweight division. Would we see Rashad possibly attempt making middleweight?
Well, first he needs to get healthy. He has a lot of bad luck. It's kind of too bad. I leave it into Brazil in a couple of hours together for Michael Johnson and Cesar Mutanchi that fight. So I'm going to the airport in a couple of hours together with him. He's invited by the UFC for a Q&A. And we trained this morning, or we talked tomorrow this morning, and he did some rehab. So he's doing his rehab. I think Rashad still has it to do what he has to do. He just needs to be focused, and hopefully he gets out of this injury. If he gets out of this injury now, it still can be good. And whatever weight class he's going to fight, we're going to see when he's ready to fight. I mean, if Anthony is in his way, then he has to go to 185, and he wants to do that, he goes to 185,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Henry, before we jump to the submission radio tap-out round and have a bit of fun, we've also been wondering, some of the fans also wondering, with Tyrone Spong, when do you think we might see him in the UFC? And do you think that Tyrone, might be a force to reckon with? And, do you think the UFC might force him to jump to the company in 2015?
Tyrone has so much qualities. At this moment, he's boxing a lot. And training boxing. He's going to do his first fight in the beginning of March. He's going to be in Germany for a month, and he has like 4 professional fights there. He's building up his record. He trains with Pedro Diaz. Tyrone can do everything. I mean, he's 28 years old, 9-time world champion kickboxing. He can do everything. He's really, really good. And I also believe that he can make a good case in the UFC. He's naturally very strong. He has good hands. He's just good. His wrestling is good. He's learning. I mean, now with his leg injury, he couldn't train, but while he was kickboxing with Nathan Corbett and all the other guys, in the meantime, he was wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu. So he's learning, and I really think a guy with his standards, with his athleticism, how he is, how strong he is, how fast he is, and hungry, he can be a force for everybody in the UFC. I mean, standard-wise, he has not a problem with nobody, of course, but he just needs to work on his grappling and his wrestling. And he was doing that until he got hurt. So, yeah, I would see him one day if the boxing doesn't. He already told me if boxing goes too slow and I not get to a point where I feel that I'm going to make some real money and going to be a champion. I'm going to make that step to the UFC. He asked Dana White specifically a couple of times to put me in the UFC, so he wants it.
Awesome.
Now, Henry, before we jump to the tap-out round, UFC, they released some news. Basically, they're going to be introducing harsher sanctions for fighters who test positive for steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs. As a coach, are you happy to see that the company may be giving guys suspensions up to 4 years for their first offense, starting soon, if they test positive for any of the performance-enhancing drugs? And is it something that you worry about with so many fighters, obviously, of yours fighting in MMA?
Of course. I mean, I never took anything, in my career as a fighter. I mean, I saw stuff happening around me when I was getting really tired. In fights, other people were still going, getting bigger. I mean, I never thought it was good for the sport. I mean, but the other thing is, people want to see freak athletes. People want to see stuff happening. People want to see people going on bicycles 3 weeks on the highest mountains without stopping. People want to see everything, and then stuff like this is just going to happen. That's just the thing that's going to be for always going to be there. I mean, they're going to be sanctioning people, they're going to punish people, but it's not the problem of the fighters who are doing that stuff alone. It's also the people who are demanding stuff from them, from athletes, and want to see magic, and that's not going to happen without any help with doctors or with something. So it's not, they're not have to just do only something against the fighters. They're also the people who are demanding stuff and bigger, better, stronger, faster. That's not going to come from just brown bread and cheese or something, So, I mean, I'm against all this stuff, and I'm never involved in anything. If people ask me about Vito or people, they're on the wrong address. I'm just a kickboxing trainer, stand-up trainer, and I try to stay with my profession. I'm not going to mix up in other stuff, but I think it's a good thing to punish people who are doing the wrong thing, but also they have to look to the people who are demanding such big things from athletes, not only in our sport, in every sport,
A lot of the guests on our show say the same thing. Now, Henry, to finish up the interview, we're going to do something quick with you called the submission rated tap out round. We ask you a bunch of fun questions and you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. If you could coach anyone in MMA from past and present, who would it be and why?
Anthony Pettis, because I think stand-up-wise, he has the best style. He's stand-up-wise the coolest fighter to see, to watch at this moment, and I'm a big fan of him. So. And he's a very good trainer. I like him.
Now, Henry, we know you're an amazing striker, but what are your skills like on the ground? Do you do much grappling?
Nope. I'm very bad. I don't want to be on my back. I have legs for nothing. I don't have my legs for nothing. I want to stand on them.
Yeah. Now, Henry, finish the sentence. People don't know that I'm
not good at grappling.
now they know, Henry, the truth's coming out. Now, the hardest puncher ever that you've dealt with in a gym, who was it? Who was the hardest puncher that threw a punch at you when you were doing mitts?
Tyrone Spong.
Wow. Now, Henry, do you spar with your guys in the gym, and how competitive is it?
Yes, I spar with my fighters until 6 months ago. I sparred every Friday, and I did like 10 rounds without any problem. And I went hard. I always hit a couple of my own fighters. I just try to put some people down on the floor, liver shots and everything. Everybody knows how I am. And nowadays, I just jump in there when I see that the tempo is too slow and they go too soft. I put on my shin guards and gloves and just try to hit people,
Wow.
Business is coming when Henry jumps in the ring. Now, Mayweather and Pacquiao, looks like they're going to be fighting soon. As a striking coach and a guy that knows it so well, who's going to win it and how?
I'm a fan of Pacquiao, but I think Mayweather is going to win it because he's so smart.
Wow. Now, your favorite fight as a fighter that we need to find on YouTube right now?
Let me see. Favorite fights. Yeah, the Ramon Dekkers fights. If you look at all Ramon Dekkers fights, they're like crazy fights. And again, Tyrone Spong, Nathan Corbett was a crazy-ass fight. I mean, it was beautiful from our side of the fight, But Ramon Dekkers fights against like Sanctionoy, like the real good Thai fighters, go watch every fight of Ramon Dekkers. You're going to get excited,
Henry, tell us, what's the best fight? What's your favorite fight that you fought in? Obviously, you fought over 100 fights, so it might be tough for you to look through all of them. But what's your favorite one that stands out to you?
My favorite fight that I fought myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a kickboxing match in the Netherlands. I was supposed to fight somebody who was like very, really talented and never lost a fight. His name was Stipe Miocic. At that time, he was a very up-and-coming fighter. I was already European champion. And I beat him on low kicks in the second round. The first round, he got me rocked a little bit. and then I hit him with low kicks, and he gave up in the middle of the round. And at that time, Peter Aerts and everybody was in the guy's corner, and a couple of years later, I ended up training with Peter.
Wow.
But, it was one of my favorite fights.
That's got to be a good feeling. Now, you spent time in Thailand training when you were younger. Any crazy stories from your Thailand experience?
Well, the crazy story is that I got married with a Thai wife sitting next to me now. I'm already married for 25 years, and I have a daughter. I speak Thai like everybody in Thailand. I already come there for a long time. We have a house there. So, no, not really crazy stories. Only me. I was fighting for the first time in Thailand. I was in a bar, just in a bar like everybody knows. In Pattaya, have these bars. I fought a guy, and he was kind of fat Thai guy, and I was kind of tall and lean. And the first kick he gave me, I was like, oh shit, what is this? I mean, he looked fat out of shape. So I had to get him out of there quickly. So I knocked him out at the end of the round. But with 16-ounce gloves, that was crazy stuff. You know?
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy over there. Now, you spoke about the intensity in the gym, but who's the biggest practical joker of the Black Zillions? Who likes to joke around the most?
That's Rashad Evans.
Oh, really? What kind of jokes does he do? Give us an example.
Yeah, he's just the funniest guy. He changed up the music. He started dancing, funny stuff on the telephones, in training. He's just a very funny guy, very good guy to have around. He's an actor, man. He's a good fighter and he's an actor. They have to hire him in Hollywood. He's good.
You need
And Matt Mitrione too. No, Matt Mitrione too. Together with Matt. Matt also. Matt Mitrione's crazy too.
Yeah, he was down in Melbourne a few years ago, and he was really cool. Finally, to wrap things up, Henry, out of all the amazing things you've accomplished, what stands out to you thus far as a highlight? What's the biggest thing in your career?
As a fighter myself, I think you come from a very small gym in the Netherlands and become world champion and European champion, of course. And as a trainer now, just having people from Australia calling me for an interview, people from New York coming to try to train with me, basketball players, NFL guys who training with me. It's kind of awesome, to see that stuff now. Really, people really start noticing me a little bit more than before. I'm not a guy. If you look at the UFC fights, I'm never the guy who stands on top of the cage, or I always stay in the background and everything. And it's happy. It's nice to see that I get some compliments and people really see my work. So that's my biggest accomplishment.
Well, we usually see your work, especially when we watch the UFC fights. And, coming from a couple of guys in Australia, we can say it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Guys, make sure you follow Henry at Henri Hooft on Twitter, HenriHooft, or go to henryhooft.com to see all of his latest updates. Once again, Henry, thank you so much for doing the interview and coming on the show with us.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. And hopefully once soon I'll come over to your side of the ocean and then do some stuff over there and show you my skills and spread the Black Zillion virus all over,
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely love that. Again, thanks so much for doing the interview, Henry. Have a great flight and good luck in Brazil this weekend.
Super, man. Take care, yeah?
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And there you go, guys. That was the one and only Henri Hooft. We caught up with him a little bit early during the week and had a chat with him. He's obviously in Brazil at the moment to corner a couple of his guys, namely Michael Johnson and Cesar Ferrara from the Black Zillions. We'll be talking about them and a whole bunch of fights. But you know what? Big Brazil card. I don't know about big, but there was definitely a Brazil card this weekend, Dennis. UFC up in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Frank Mir, Antonio Silva headline. We're going to be breaking down that card, talking about the fights. What do you want to talk about with this one, Dennis? What stands out to you on this card? And what did you think of the card in general?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty average. I guess it was one of those fillers in between the big cards. I mean, UFC 184 was supposed to be huge, massive mammoth, one of the big ones that everyone was waiting for. I myself wasn't extremely excited about it, but I was interested to see what was going to happen in a few of the matchups. I mean, let's kick it off on the main card, Cass. Let's talk about Sean Strickland, because this is a guy that, we've been following for a while. He looked like a guy that was really going to be the next big thing in welterweight. Great looking dude, skills in every area, moves well, a lot of potential, and he lost in Brazil. It was, I guess, a night of the underdogs, but yeah, he lost in Brazil. It was a very exciting fight. Lots of punches thrown. I mean, Sean took some damage to the face. It was really, really impressive. He dished out a lot of damage as well. Had his hair in a bun. His hair came out of the bun eventually and potentially gave him an advantage in the fight. But what did you think of this one, Cass?
The advantage we'll never know. Well, I mean, look, Sean Strickland, obviously he had a huge run in middleweight and then he beat Luke Barnett. I remember being really unimpressed with that fight, and for all the hype of Sean Strickland, I actually thought Luke Barnett won. And then dropping down to welterweight, making his welterweight debut, I thought the first round was a really fun round, lots of back and forth. And after that, I think it toned down a little bit. There were a few glimpses of greatness and of fun in the second round, but by the third round, I wasn't really all that impressed. I don't know what his game plan was going to that fight. He seemed really content to throw a lot of jabs. His jab was pretty much the primary weapon he had in that fight. He was going for a lot of takedowns. I was reading on the internet the size difference between him and Santiago Ponzinibbio. I didn't see it. I thought Santiago looked absolutely massive. Obviously, Sean looked tall, but as far as like thickness and strength-wise, I thought Santiago looked a lot bigger. And yeah, like with Sean, I really saw glimpses of, I was impressed with certain things with Sean, like his ability to take punishment. He took a couple of flush kicks to the face, and there was some really good bits where he would get caught with a shot, and then he'd react very quickly, and he'd go for a takedown or he'd clinch up. So I was really impressed with his instincts, but as the fight wore on, I really just Sean throwing a lot of jabs, and that's pretty much it. I didn't really see too much offense. He was looking to counter, he'd throw a jab, he'd wait for Santiago to come in, and then he'd try and catch him with with like a left or a right hook. But Santiago, when he did jump in, he'd cover distance really quickly. So this wasn't my favorite fight. Even though Santiago won a clear decision, I still thought it was a close fight. I was more impressed. The most impressive thing I was impressed with was the resilience on both guys, especially Sean Strickland. So we'll see what happens in the future. This guy's got a lot of promise. I'm curious how the weight cut was for him. I mean, to me, he didn't look drained or anything. He didn't look like a huge welterweight either, though, in my opinion. He looked like a guy who, if you had a big wrestler against him, could possibly get dominated. We'll see what happens. He's still got a lot of hype. He's lost one fight at the moment, and I think arguably lost two in a row. So we'll see what happens and how he sort of rebuilds himself from here.
Yeah, the kid's only 23 years old as well. I mean, when you look at the guy's record, he's got a record that a lot of 30-year-olds have. So interesting to see. And I just think it's really, really tough for a fighter to go to Brazil and win, especially when you don't have very much experience fighting in the UFC. It's just, I don't know. I could just imagine it being really, really tough. The whole country's sort of against you. It was really hot in the arena. Apparently, it was like 100 degrees or something like that. They said at one point.
That's Fahrenheit, though, not Celsius. To us, I don't know what that would be. That's like, what, 30, high 30s or something?
Yeah, which is still extremely hot to fight in.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be really humid. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I feel like a lot of guys just get defeated by Brazil in fighting in Brazil. So interested to see what happens with Sean next.
Just before we go further, just a couple of notes. Obviously, in case we didn't mention it already, the crazy record that was broken in this card, you had 10 underdogs winning. Not only 10 underdogs winning, but consecutively. That's the most since UFC Fight Night 38. I mean, I find that pretty crazy. Really night of the underdogs. And I was just thinking, Dennis, I haven't said this to you, but I'm always looking for ways to make more money. I'm like, man, how can I make more money? Should I gamble or, become a poker player? I've been watching too many movies like Runner and Ocean's 11. I want the easy money. And I was like, maybe I'll start betting on MMA. I used to have terrible luck betting on MMA, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it another shot. Last time I bet on it was Travis Brown versus Bigfoot, and I put a lot of money on Travis Brown, and we all know how that worked out. And then this fight right here, perfect reminder why I will never bet on MMA ever again. The night of the underdogs, 10 underdog wins in a row. I hope that someone out there made a multi-bet picking all the underdogs and was just like, you know what? I'll just pick all the odds, all the good odds, some that pay as well. I hope someone there is laughing with a fat stack of cash. The other point that I wanted to make, man, there's something about these Brazil cards. I hate the production. I hate the way it looks. I don't know whether it is. I don't know whether it's the lighting or something about the arena. I don't know. I got nothing against Brazil. I can't stand the production on these cards. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, the production's not that great. And it is one of those cards sometimes, due to the lack of well-known fighters and the production values, you almost feel like you're not watching a UFC product. You feel like you're sort of watching, like, a good example is like the WWE. For people that watch wrestling, they have like Raw and SmackDown, and they have like this program called Next, which is like where they're like starters are fighting.
Yeah.
And you sort of just feel like you're watching a program not at the level of a usual one, almost like it's taking a break. It's sort of not what you're used to seeing. So I agree with you, man. And, it was a tiny little arena as well, 5,000 people and 5,080 people in attendance. I think sometimes with those Brazil cards as well, and you have a guy like Jose Aldo or guys like that, huge Brazilian superstars, you get a lot of vibe in the arena. And I was feeling that the crowd was really silent for a lot of it. They were really just sort of sitting around. It was pretty quiet. I don't know. there wasn't a good kind of feeling watching it, you know?
I get this weird feeling about that arena, and I don't know, like when we go to Sydney, Allphones Arena, I feel like it's a very tight arena. Like the crowd is really wrapped around that cage. It's very tight. With this arena, I feel like you got the octagon in the middle and then there's this huge space and then you've got the crowd. I could be wrong. If there's any Brazilians listening, by all means, please, correct us or let us know what it's like in the actual arena. But yeah, that's a tiny arena, 5,000 people. And we're going to be talking about these cards after we break down UFC Brazil. I've got a few theories on these watered down cards. I want to touch on this next fight as well. Yuri Alcantara versus Frankie Saenz. Great name, by the way. Great name, Frankie Saenz. I feel like he needs some kind of scientific nickname. Guy comes in there on, barely any notice and defeats the number 8 ranked bantamweight, in the UFC. And, Yuri's been around. He's been around for a long time. He's established. I believe he lost not too long ago to Uriah Faber, but since then he's got 3 in a row. So he was a guy who was really gunning for, not necessarily next title shot, but he put together a nice streak. And Frankie just, completely dominated him and came in there. I mean, didn't quite look like another Frankie Edgar, but I was very impressed with his performance. Really used that wrestling. He had, Henry Cejudo, I want to say. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Henry Cejudo in his corner. He comes from the Arizona wrestling program. I believe Arizona is where Cain Velasquez comes from. Cain Velasquez, Ryan Bader, and CB Dollaway, the Arizona Sun Devils. So really, really impressed with that fight. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a big win, and again, a huge win for an underdog. I mean, the guy doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. You want to find out stuff about him, you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way by finding one of those old wires and sending a telegraph or something to someone to get some information through. But the big loss. It's a big loss. I almost feel like if you're a fighter and you get one of these sort of matchups with an unknown in a country like Brazil, you're taking a big risk, I almost feel like, especially if you're riding a big win streak because, it's a different country. It's a different vibe. I don't know. I think it gets a lot of guys off their game.
One of these days, and I actually wanted to do this before this show, but I realized didn't have nearly enough time. But I want to sit down. I want to look at the statistics of how many foreigners win in Brazil and how many Brazilians win in Brazil. Because for every I don't know who wins in I can't think of anyone, but there's guys that consistently win in Brazil, like Honey Jason, for example. But then you've got guys like Cesar Ferreira and who else? And Cesar Ferreira, who loses constantly in Brazil, and then you got Phil Davis, who constantly wins in Brazil. So I want to look at that in the future and find out, is it actually, according to statistics, is it a case of Brazilian fighters having the advantage, or is it the foreigners that have the advantage? Because I feel like if you're in Brazil, the people are so passionate. If you lose there, like someone's gonna stab you. Like you're not Brazilian anymore. You lost. You embarrassed us, kind of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. It's a different world. I reckon it almost gets into your head. I don't know. It must be tough cutting weight, going to a foreign country. A lot of guys have said it to us before. You're trying to find familiar food. You're trying to get in, and it's not like when you go to Australia, for example, to fight. And here it's pretty similar to America. You got your same food, you got everything available. A very similar culture, and Aussies, they're cool. They go for whatever. Although we go for our own, a lot of Americans are very successful here. It's almost like a fun holiday for them. As a matter of fact, anytime an American comes over to Australia, I always notice they always talk about, I'd love to get a holiday house here and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It must be different. It's like whenever we go to vacation in Thailand or places like that, it's so different. Like it takes me completely out of my comfort zone. It takes me weeks just to get used to just holidaying there. So I can't imagine fighting. But the next big fight, Cass, it delivered another underdog win, and this guy, he's been having a bit of a rough run. I'm of course talking about our good friend Khabilov. He's came into the UFC, suplexed the hell out of Vince Purcell, and really showed a dominant performance. Ever since that fight, had a few good wins, but we just haven't seen that crazy domination that we once saw when he first came in. What did you think of that fight?
Well, I was expecting a lot of good things from him. I thought we may see those suplexes against Vince Purcell. That was a crazy highlight. There used to be a video on YouTube. It was like top 10 takedowns in the UFC. They took it down for some reason. I think maybe because Frank Shamrock was somewhere up there. But if you can find that replay, man, those suplexes were insane. And against Benson Henderson, Khabilov did actually pretty decent until he got choked out. That was a competitive fight. I believe that was in like the 4th round, which Khabilov had never fought 4 rounds. And I really thought that against Adriano Martins, he was really going to put it together. Didn't do it at all. Honestly, this fight, in my opinion, didn't deliver at all. I really I didn't like the fight at all. I wasn't impressed. It was a split decision. Probably could have gone either way. And then you got Adriano Martins. He's a really dangerous guy. And both of them just seem so tentative. You got Rustam Khabilov, who just lost to Benson Henderson. That guy needs a win, People are talking about him being a huge threat in the lightweight division. He needs to get in there. He needs to get after it, Sometimes you see guys, they lose. It may be a bad loss and they come back. And it's like, wow, like... brand new version, version 2.0. The firmware has been upgraded, and that's what Rustam needed. And then you got Adriano Martins. He's another guy. He got put up against Cowboy Cerrone earlier on. He lost. He was overmatched there. And he's another guy that, in order to become that next big thing, he needed this win. I think both guys just, unfortunately dropped the ball a little bit with this one.
Martins, he's a tough guy in the grappling department. I definitely think Khabilov sort of underestimated him. And, he was made to look a bit foolish in the fight in a few exchanges, where he got taken down. And, he looked like he got dominated sometimes in that grappling department. I guess he just didn't expect it. And he just looked really flat. Hard to recognize him. Everybody has a bad fight. I guess that was Khabilov's one, but it was definitely really tough for him in terms of the division because, he was fighting Benson Henderson and headlining a card. Now he's losing to a guy that not that many people really know about. He's done a lot, but not that many people know about him. So that's, it's going to really bring him down the ladder. And now he's really got to, win a few fights and get back up there. So it's a tough one for him.
I feel like the lightweight division, it's one of those ones where you need a lot to prove yourself. Like there's so many guys on so many win streaks. Like, you've got, I'm not going to name some of them because obviously we're going to talk about guys on this card, but there's so many guys on win streaks. But I feel like if you lose just one fight, it's like you're automatically out of the running. You know what I mean? Because there's so many guys, this guy might be the next contender. And if you lose that fight, it's like, away with you. We'll focus on those other like 3, 4, or 5 guys on winning streaks. So, disappointing for Rustam Khabilov. And, with Adriano, I'm really excited to see what happens with him. Still, both guys, still forces to be reckoned with. I just think too tentative. Let's talk about the next fight, man. This was a really interesting fight. You got Smile and Sam Alvey. He fought last, obviously, in Sydney, here in Australia. And then you got Cesar Ferrara, who I believe last time we saw him was getting knocked out by CB Dollaway in his hometown of Brazil. It might have even been the same arena. What did you think of this fight, Dennis?
Well, I got to say that when we were in Sydney, we got to spend a little bit of time with Sam. We did a backstage interview, and then we got to sort of chill out in the back. We were working hard on the show, on the UFC Sydney show, but he was in the back there with his kid and his wife. And yeah, he's a great guy. He's just one of these guys that he's a great family man. He's mentally all there for the fight. He's as nice as he looks in the octagon. That's how nice he is backstage.
Yeah.
And honestly, you just think the guy's just one of the production crew guys, just sort of chilling out, having a donut, kicking back. He couldn't have been a nicer guy, and I was just absolutely impressed with him. He's a slow starter, but that combination that he threw, Cesar just fell to the ground like a bag of potatoes. And I think, there's a star to be made in Sam Alvey. He's got a really, really interesting personality. I loved the fact that he was playing with the crowd at the end there, did a bit of a Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Got all the sides of the crowd to make as much noise as they could for that Sam Alvey t-shirt. Sam needs to go back to his t-shirt designer and get him to stop putting down the word font across the front and change up the design a little bit. But hey, man, that t-shirt, that was highly sought after.
Yeah,
never seen so many people. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. He's a good self-promoter. If I'm in the UFC and I'm watching right now, I think, hey, this guy could be something fun that we could play around with. So I thought he was starting very slowly, but he got the job done just like he did in Sydney. The win in Sydney, that was an interesting one as well when he reversed that suplex. That was a pretty funny one as well. But he's just one of these guys. I just think he's mentally all there. He's so mentally strong. And a lot of guys can learn from him. He's such a wily veteran. Very excited to see what happens with him next. Before we talk about the person that he called out sort of out after the fight, what did you think of it, Cass?
That's the thing, with Sam Alvey, he's been around. He's had a lot of fights. He's been up there with a lot of veterans. That's the thing. Sometimes people say when you have a kid, it changes you. When we were in Sydney, he was talking about how, he recently brought a child into the world and things like that. And sometimes I wonder, is it going to make a guy soft and how they're going to react? Going into this fight, Sam, did he even throw any punches before the knockout combination? He was just basically standing there. I was already thinking like Homer Simpson against Drake Tatum I was thinking, like, what is he doing? Is he just waiting for Cesar to tire out, or what happened? And man, that combination was crazy. A right hand over the top, and then that left uppercut. It was so fast, and the way Cesar dropped, like that's got to be front runner for like KO of the, not front runner, but that's got to be up there for KO of the year. Like aesthetically, that was so pleasing. It was just like boom, boom. And the impact of that shot, the way that Cesar fell, the sound when he hit the floor. I even think that Mario Yamasaki was maybe a little bit late in stopping that because he was clearly out. He looked like he just woken up from a 1,000-year-old sleep. But sick fight, and I couldn't be more happy than for a guy like Sam Alvey, who clearly is one of the nicest guys in MMA. Like Dennis said, we had a chat with him and hung out with him a little bit in the UFC Sydney. And yeah, what you see on TV is exactly what he's like in real life. Super, super nice guy.
Yeah, and the guy's only 28 years old. He's had, 25 wins and 16 by knockout. I mean, very, very interesting what they do with him next. Now, he said that he'd like to fight our own...
Dan Kelly.
Dan Kelly, that's right, which I thought was interesting. Maybe he wants to go back to Adelaide, in May, because he didn't really get damaged in this fight, and Dan's sort of coming off a win. So, hey, I'd like to possibly see that fight get made, but I don't know. I think it might be a very tough fight for Dan. And
if Dan
maybe
takes that fight, he needs to use his judo. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind seeing Sam Alvey get a step up in competition. Maybe give him somebody, a little bit better so we could see what Sam could really do. But, the guy's a gamer, and, 25 wins out of 31 fights. I mean, he hasn't lost that many fights, only 6 losses out of all those fights. Very excited to see what he's going to do in the division. And, yeah, just a nice guy, 28 years old. And it just seems like just a guy that's happy to be in there. And I'm happy to see that he won the bonus, Cass, the big bonus. He won the bonus, so that's good for him. Good for the family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most guys nowadays are family men anyway. But yeah, you see with Sam Alvey, like the lady in the ring, that was his wife. And obviously we spoke about the kids. I'm super happy for him, 50 grand. Let's talk about the next fight. You got Michael Johnson versus Edson Barbosa. Dennis, I want to get your thoughts on this one. I couldn't believe Michael Johnson was the underdog. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought Edson Barbosa was going to beat him. So I had him as the underdog as well. Edson Barbosa, obviously... amazing striker, but just that chin, it's a bit questionable, When I saw the fight, I was just absolutely surprised. First of all, the actual fight was great. It was a great fight. So many punches and kicks and attacks thrown. Michael Johnson, though, he just looked like a man on a mission, like unbelievable. He looked really, really good. He was pushing forward the whole time, throwing combination after combination, battered at Edson's face, cut his eye open. Edson, he was throwing some intricate kicks, man, straight to the body, and Johnson was just walking through it. I was very, very impressed with Johnson. Interested to see what Johnson's going to do in the division. What about you, Cass? What did you think of the fight?
Yeah, man, this is a standout performance for Michael Johnson. I mean, for a guy to be out for a year and come back and be that successful against another guy who has a lot of momentum on his side, Edson Barbosa, that's the one thing. I honestly thought that Michael Johnson had all the tools to beat Edson Barbosa. I thought that if he came in with his relentless pressure that he could beat him. Edson Barbosa is really one of those guys that needs space to open up. I was really impressed with Michael Johnson's ability to take those body kicks because, man, every kick that Edson threw looked like it really, really hurt. It landed solidly. It hit Michael Johnson in the side. Michael Johnson, man, he's crazy. When I look at him, I think I'm very good at like mixing people together to get the equation. I think he reminds me of like Chris Tucker mixed with Ice Cube, and then you've got like a little bit of John Jones's body type. Like he does not even look like an athlete, and yet he's one of the most athletic guys in the lightweight division. And man, he showed it. Like for a guy, like I said, for a guy to come back after a years long layoff and look that good is amazing. I think he called out Benson Henderson after the fight. I would love to see that. Benson Henderson, he recently took on Brandon Thatch. I want to see if he can handle the striking of a Michael Johnson, the athleticism, the experience of Michael Johnson, and then, of course, Michael Johnson's got his grappling as well. I reckon make that fight, and then whoever wins, I reckon it'd come down to the winner of that fight or Cowboy Cerrone and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Either one, give that man a title shot.
Yeah, that Michael Johnson-Benson Henderson fight would be great. I think Henderson might need to do a bit more to get another title shot because he did lose to Pettis a couple of times. But, he looked really, really, really good. And, I mean, Henri Hooft was on our show just before, we had a big chat to him, and, it just really shows the kind of training that he's doing with these guys. I mean, I think Henry might be one of the more underrated trainers in MMA right now. He's done so much great work with a lot of guys. I mean, Michael Johnson looks completely different to the Michael Johnson that we saw in The Ultimate Fighter. The way he moves, how quick he is for the division, the way he throws that jab and all the combinations that he throws. I mean, he just looks like a completely different fighter, just improving all the time. I think some of the stuff that Henry spoke to us about, like the sparring, the way they spar and how hard they go, and how they test each other in the ring, I think that's really paying off for a lot of those fighters. And I think Michael Johnson's really lucky to be in a camp with guys like Rashad, with guys like Anthony Johnson, with guys like Vitor Belfort, with a guy like Henry by his side, coaching him. Because for a young guy, I mean, he's not that young. He's 28, but he's still fairly young for the sport.
That's young, yeah.
Yeah, still fairly young for the sport. He's not like a Shogun who's been fighting for ages and ages. For a guy like that to have guys around him to get that big rub, I mean, it's really showing. And I mean, it looks like he worked really, really hard for this fight. And yeah, just really happy for him. Good stuff, Michael Johnson.
I want to talk about this next fight, the main event, Frank Mir versus Antonio Silva. Before we talk about the fight itself and the result, I want to get your thoughts, Dennis. What did you think about this fight leading up to it, and who did you think had the advantage? Who did you think was going to win?
It was a tough one. I thought Antonio Silva was going to beat him. I don't know why I thought that. I just felt like Frank Mir might have been at the end of his line. His last few fights haven't been that impressive. And obviously, we know the chin's not there. I was afraid that Bigfoot was going to hit him and possibly knock him out. Now, Bigfoot that we saw in this fight compared to the Bigfoot that we saw fight Mark Hunt, two different fighters.
Yeah.
Couldn't even recognize him. Just absolutely different. But that was my prediction. Cass, who did you have? Did you have Frank Mir, the legend, or did you have Bigfoot coming over in this one?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I had Bigfoot in this one just because there's certain traits that I saw in Frank Mir that I thought would cost him the fight, such as getting put against the cage. We saw Nogueira put him up against the cage. We saw a lot of guys put Frank Mir up against the cage and dirty box him. I also think as far as Frank Mir's chin, he's been cracked in that chin so many times. He's had his quote-unquote egg scrambled by guys like Brock Lesnar, by guys like Shane Carwin, by Nogueira, arguably, and then who else? And then Junior Dos Santos, he got knocked out as well. So I think Frank Mir, couple that with age, I really thought this is a bad matchup when you got a guy like Bigfoot Silva who's got the knockout power, even though I think that's a little bit, hyperbole. He does have the knockout power, and I thought he did have the strength to, even take Frank Mir down, and I didn't expect Bigfoot to submit Frank Mir. Frank Mir's been in fights against much better grapplers than Antonio Silva, but I thought if you took Frank Mir down, I'd say he'd have the advantage in the wrestling department, and pound him out or put him up against the cage and possibly force a knockout. Man, I'll tell you what happened was not at all what I expected. Not only Frank Mir, but judging by Frank Mir's physique, I mean, I really thought this fight could go any way. When I saw him at the weigh-ins, I was like, damn, 261. I think he was weighing like in the 255s not too long ago, since joining the Jacksons team and getting his athleticism back. And then, man, when I saw a Bigfoot Silva, I was like, damn, this guy is in really, really bad shape. Even compare him to the Bigfoot that fought Mark Hunt back when he was on TRT. And I think with Bigfoot Silva, I'm not for TRT or anything like that, but this is a guy where he's probably one of the only guys you could probably argue should or could possibly be on TRT. He's got that giantism, agramali, or I think whatever it's called, where forces his body, it really drops his body's testosterone level, and you could just see it when he came out. His physique was terrible. He looked like he put on a lot of weight. His arms were even skinnier than usual, and man, after you look at the performance against Arlovsky, and then you look at this performance, getting knocked out by Frank Mir, like, don't get me wrong, Frank Mir, he's always had decent boxing, but he's never been known as like a KO guy. He knocked out a very faded Mirko Krokop. So to get knocked out by Frank Mir like this, rested or unrested, that spells disaster for Bigfoot Silva, who, to be honest, is a guy that I've always thought is a little bit overrated, and there were some wins that he got a little bit luckily, like Alistair Overeem and like Travis Brown. Dennis, what did you think of this fight?
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, Frank Mir, we didn't really get to see too much of him, but in the part of the fight that we did get to see, it looked like he was throwing better combinations. The combination that he got Bigfoot with, it was a little bit different to what we used to seeing Frank Mir throw, which was always that same combination over and over again.
The uppercut.
That uppercut. He was talking about how his new boxing coach got him to switch stances and that whole thing. So, hey, he looks really rejuvenated. Bigfoot Silva, on the other hand, I agree with you, Casper, and I'd go as far as to say he looked a bit sickly to me, He just looked a bit sickly to me. I hope he's doing okay. Obviously the condition that he's got can really put your body in stress, give you back issues, a whole lot of issues. My biggest problem with Bigfoot was, he was always slow, but he just looked like a statue. I mean, for him to beat anybody, I'll go as far as to say, for him to beat anybody, really in the UFC heavyweight division now, they'd really have to really be injured and not moving for him to land that knockout punch. Because otherwise, I just don't know how he's even going to land a combination. I mean, he's just extremely slow, and he's just in the way of all the punches. I'm not sure what he's planning on doing after this, but after the last few performances, I wouldn't mind seeing him, seriously consider possibly moving into another phase of his career, because he's obviously achieved a lot of great things in his career. I mean, he still beat Overeem, he still beat Brown, he beat one of the greatest of all time, Fedor Emelianenko. And actually, when he fought Fedor, and that was around 2011, I think he was in really good shape around then. I think he was really hitting his stride around then. I'd probably go as far as to say that was sort of his prime, I'd even say, or maybe near the end of his prime. But, the guy is a bit older. He's 35 years old. He's been fighting for a really long time. He's got this health condition that's obviously really slowing him down. I just don't know how much he's got left to offer to MMA. And the other thing was, I just didn't feel like he was that big Brazilian draw card. Even though the Brazilians went for him because he was from Brazil, I just don't feel like they connected with him like they do to a lot of their other fighters, I don't know what you do with a guy like this. Obviously, heavyweight division's a bit thin, and you can always use a big name, but seeing a guy like that in the octagon, in the shape that he was in, sort of fighting the way that he fought, I just don't think it does much for the company or the organization. And I just think personally, for Antonio as well, just start worrying about all that damage that he's taken to his head. So interesting to see what's going to come out of it. But Cass, Frank Mir looks like he got a second go at life. Looked really good. What do you do with a guy like Frank Mir? What do you do with him?
Before we talk about Frank Mir, I just wanted to add, with Bigfoot Silva, there's a few things. Like when he came out, I really didn't hear much from the crowd at all. He didn't really get that reaction. I'm not sure that he was expecting it, but he wasn't like a Jose Aldo. He wasn't like a Nogueira. He wasn't like a, obviously Anderson Silva, but, like a Shogun, Junior Santos. I think even Fabio Maldonado might have gotten a bigger ovation than Bigfoot Silva. I don't think he's, he really even has the fan support as much. He can still go against lower tier heavyweights in the UFC, but with his health condition, it's like they always say in boxing, your speed and your reflexes are the first to go. And with a guy of his frame with huge fists like that and his condition of giantism, his speed going is a really big detriment to him. And some guys with big heads and big chins, it gives him the ability to absorb punches, and with Antonio Silva, it just creates a huge target. And in heavyweight, when guys hit so hard, it's just the absolute worst thing. But you asked me about Frank Mir, what do you do with a guy like that? Look, I'm not ready to jump on the Frank Mir bandwagon and say, hey, Frank Mir's back and this and that. Because Frank Mir's done this his whole career. When his back's been up against the wall, he has made that comeback. There's been a lot of times where, before he beat Brock Lesnar, UFC 81, he wasn't looking so hot, That was probably his, that was a huge performance for him after that huge motorcycle accident, And then after losing to Shane Carwin, he made another big comeback. So with him, it's a good fight. All hats off. I'm really happy to see Frank Mir, dig himself out of the dirt and come back in the win column. But again, over a guy like Bigfoot, you got to sort of wonder. I would love to see him have a trilogy with Nogueira. I actually, believe it or not, would have interest. Given that Nogueira almost knocked him out in the second time, the first fight, whatever, controversy, staff, this and that, people say Nogueira had excuses. But in the second fight, it looked like Frank Mir was done. And then he had that crazy Kimura win. He broke Nogueira's arm. Insane stuff. So I'd like to see him go for a third time. Frank Mir is obviously very confident. We'll see. And obviously, obviously Nogueira's chin has been shot. I think it's a nice even step Frank Mir. You know, if you could pick any opponent, I think it'd be either Nogueira or Brock Lesnar. And if Brock Lesnar comes back to the UFC, that right there is the fight to make. It's a rubber match that has been talked about for years and years, and obviously it's simmered down recently, but that's still a fight that people will be interested in. They're one apiece. You know, if the UFC want to build up Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir is a good guy to do that with. You know, obviously there is a threat of Brock Lesnar getting knocked out, but it's better than putting him up against, you say, Junior Dos Santos or Overeem or Cain Velasquez or, you know, or even a big country, guys like that, or Mark Hunt. So I would say probably Nogueira or Brock Lesnar. And given that we're in February and Brock Lesnar's contract ends, I think, in March, there's a very good chance if Brock Lesnar comes to the UFC that we may see that. What do you think, Dennis? What do you want to see next from Frank Mir?
Yeah, you know, I absolutely agree with you. I think there's this whole thing now in the UFC where they have the fighters that are looking to get a title and are looking to be the best guys in the world. And then they have legends in the division. Now they're realizing, all right, let's just get these legends and put on great fights that people are going to enjoy. And I think Frank Mir has gone from a guy, you know, that's going to be the best in the world, okay, because there's guys in the division that are probably going to beat him. I think he's fine with that. He knows his achievements, and he knows, you know, that he's still got a lot to offer. And I think the UFC realizes it as well. I mean, they gave him some tough fights. All those losses. I mean, Alistair Overeem, Josh Barnett, DC, Junior Dos Santos. Those are all pretty tough fights for old Frank. So I'd love to see him fight Brock Lesnar. I think that's a fight that the UFC really needs, you know, with Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz, you know, possibly being gone for a while. That's a couple of big names that they're missing. I'd vigorously be chasing after Brock Lesnar, trying to get this deal done, at least to get Brock to fight some of these big names, you know, possibly with the selling point of, you know, Brock, you don't have to go for the title. You can verse the Frank Mirs, you know, you can verse the Nogueiras, you can verse those kind of guys in the division, you can verse the Crow Cops. With that selling point, approaching Brock Lesnar, not going, look, we're going to put you in there with Junior Dos Santos, so we're not going to put you in there with Mark Hunt, but we'll put you in there with Frank Mir, those kind of guys, you know, because that article came out recently where people are going and people are saying that Brock Lesnar is possibly worried about returning to MMA because of concussion risks. And, you know, we can't really trust that kind of news because it's all just rumor and hearsay. But if I'm Brock Lesnar, you know, the Frank Mir match, why not? Makes sense. And also, with it being so far down the track, I think a lot of people might look at this matchup, you know, and a lot of people might say, hey, maybe Frank might have an advantage now. So much time has passed. Who knows what Brock Lesnar's like? So there's an intrigue there. People aren't just going to think that Brock Lesnar's going to, you know, blow past Frank Mir this time. So who knows? There's a possibility that Frank Mir could even possibly win. We just don't know what Brock Lesnar's like now compared to the old Brock Lesnar before everything happened. So I'd love to see that fight. I think that's the way to go. If they give him a guy that's up there like a Stipe Miocic or a Mark Hunt or something like that, even a guy like Ben Rothwell, I think it would make an interesting fight. But I'm just afraid that, you know, Ben might be able to beat him up. So I guess I just want to see old Frank stay in there for a bit longer because I enjoy having him on cards and seeing him fight.
The other thing is, and when he won the fight, he looked at the camera and said, I think I love you, baby. And then he's like, Daddy's going to get paid. And that's the other thing I thought. You know, Frank has been fighting a long time, but obviously the pay has been steadily going up and up and up in MMA. But a lot of Frank Mir's earlier wins were when the pay was nowhere near as good. And he was saying how if he didn't win, then his wife was going to make him get a 9-to-5 job. And that's the other reality. You know, these fighters, they need to make money. So I think if I'm Frank Mir, I don't know what his financial standings are. I think Frank Mir is a really smart guy. So I don't think he's dumb. You know, he did a lot of commentary as well. I mean, I'm sure I don't know. I don't think he's exactly broke. But at the same time, he needs to get paid. He's still a fairly young guy. He can't just retire tomorrow and expect to, you know, have enough money for the next, 60 years with inflation and things like that. So if I'm Frank, man, I'm chasing that Brock Lesnar fight like nothing else. Because, you know, if it's Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar, that could easily be, I'd say they'd probably put it as a co-main event, if I'm honest. Just, you know, given the fact that Brock Lesnar hasn't been there for a long time and Frank Mir, even though he's a name, people, I think it'd be suited better for co-main event. But if Frank Mir is getting those pay-per-view points, you know, he'd be making a really decent amount of money, and you know Frank Mir would promote the hell out of that fight. So that's just my thoughts on Frank Mir. You know, if that fight's going to happen, it's going to be happening, you're right, like you said, Dennis, quite a while down the line, because the next few pay-per-views all the way up to like UFC 189, are pretty much booked, and that's something that I want to talk about. You know, in regards to these cards, I'm hearing a lot of complaints, and these aren't anything new. These complaints have been around for a long time about watered down cards in the UFC, and, you know, cards like this one right here that we just spoke about, UFC Brazil, and, you know, I can't recognize half the fighters and things like that. And I was actually speaking to someone early today about the very same topic, and, you know, about the UFC stretching themselves thin, and, you know, it's not so much an epiphany that I had, but I just kind of look back on what we were told, you know, a while ago when all these events were announced, how I think it was Lorenzo Fertitta, or it could have been Dana White, and they mentioned how, you know, these local events, they really are just for those countries. If we're doing an event in Brazil, it's for the Brazilians. If we're doing it in Australia, we're doing it for the Aussies in the UK, etc., etc. And if you look at the cards, and obviously the way the UFC is building pay-per-views now, I'm actually pretty okay with it. Because at the end of the day, I'm a fight fan, so I'll still tune in for these, you know, Bigfoot Silva against Frank Mir matchups. I'm just happy that you and me, Dennis, we're not journalists. We don't have to write columns, because I feel sorry for the guys to have to sit up and just write article after article after article. But if you look at the way they're doing the pay-per-views, I mean, we have some crazy pay-per-views coming up. You know, double title fights. You know, Anderson Silva versus Nick Diaz. You know, back in the day, way back in the day when everyone was just excited about that card. I mean, let's just take a look at some of the upcoming pay-per-views. I'm not going to mention UFC 184 because that one kind of fell apart a little bit. There was supposed to be some crazy fights, double title fight and things like that. But let's look at UFC 185. You got Anthony Pettis versus RDA, Rafael dos Anjos. You got Carla Esparza versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She's Polish. So you got double title fight. You got Johnny Hendricks versus Matt Brown, Roy Nelson versus Alistair Overeem, Chris Carriazo, Henry Cejudo. And in the prelims, you got, you know, guys like Ross Pierce and Sam Stout, Elias Theodorou, Darren Cruikshank, Jared Rosholt, Sergio Pettis is on the Fight Pass prelims. That is a stacked card. Then you've got, you know, UFC 186. Again, double title fight. TJ Dillashaw, Brandon Barao, Demetrius Johnson against Hiraguchi, Rampage Jackson against Fabio Maldonado, Bisping versus CB Dollaway, Yves Jabouin against Thomas Almeida. And the prelims are sick as well. Alexis Davis versus Sarah Kaufman, Patrick Cote versus Joe Riggs. You know, 187, John Jones versus Anthony Rumble Johnson, Chris Weidman versus Vitor Belfort, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Donald Cerrone. You got Travis Brown versus Arlovsky, Benavidez versus Moraga. You know, these fights are all stacked, and I'm not even going to go into detail, but UFC 189, the only two fights that we know about so far, you got Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor and Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald. How crazy is it that Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald is a co-main event? So if you look at the pay-per-views, they are crazy stacked. And then in between is the filler. You've got these Brazil cards, which pretty much have almost exclusively Brazilian talent. And then you've got the Australian card, you know, UFC Adelaide, where you look at Mark Hunt versus Stipe Miocic, and then the rest of the card is pretty much all Aussies. Now, as an Aussie, I'm excited. I want to see Robert Whittaker. I want to see Jake Matthews, you know, and Anthony Perosh and all those guys. But I can understand if there's people in America that aren't that excited about those cards. But then you got to think about it. If you're going to spend $60, what do you want to spend $60 on? Do you want a pay-per-view that is kind of mediocre? And then you have fight nights where, okay, this is a decent fight night. Or would you rather these local cards to be exclusively for these local countries and then all the talent is saved for the pay-per-views? That's just something that I've sort of thought about, Dennis. You know, what are your thoughts on this one?
You know, it's interesting. I guess, yeah, from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. You know, you got to build up talent somewhere. And I guess the biggest problem with the UFC is it's not like the NFL or the NBA where there's sort of a league that develops fighters and then they go straight in there. I mean, there's a lot of little companies out there, but, you know, they got to get people to know fighters and it's all about the marketing behind it. So from that perspective, I understand it. But, you know, Cass, you know me, I've always been one of those guys that said that I don't like lots of events because it takes away some of the special feeling away from the UFC events, you know. And sometimes when there's a lot of it, it's a bit tougher to get people excited about certain things. But I also think that last year, with all the injuries, I think a lot of people misconstrued the UFC having so many cards and so many bad pay-per-view cards because there were so many injuries from those pay-per-views. So you got a lot of those fight nights that had better lineups than the pay-per-views. This time around, it looks like the pay-per-views have really good lineups. So fingers crossed the injury bug doesn't destroy those lineups and we don't end up with fight cards that are fight nights that are better than the pay-per-views. So, yeah, fingers crossed. But, look, I agree with you, man. They got to build up names somewhere, and it's good that they're doing it. I mean, they have a plan for the whole world. They want to grow the fighters, locally, organically, and then once they're big enough, bring them into these big cards. And I don't have a problem with that. As long as they don't. And I mean, how do you control it? I mean, I was gonna say as long as you don't have these injuries, but you can't control the injuries. So yeah, I mean, the way that it's looking right now, it looks like a very, very good year, and I'm excited to see what happens in Melbourne in November. Hopefully, that's another big one. So. I absolutely agree with you there. I mean, a lot of people will complain, but they're going to complain regardless. And I think if they took away all these extra cards, a lot of people will start complaining, oh, there's not enough UFC cards. So I understand it. And the other thing is it educates a lot of new fans about what the sport is and gets them into a groove of watching it. And so I think it's good for the sport in that regard.
I think, look, with 2014, yeah, there was a lot of injuries, but as far as double title fights, it was usually a double title fight if you had, say, a Ronda Rousey fight or if you had a Demetrius Johnson fight. Now we're seeing double title fights with like Conor McGregor and Robbie Lawler. Jose Aldo and Robbie Lawler, but Conor McGregor and Rory McDonald are on there. Like, those are already big draws as it is. Who knows if we may get a double title fight for the Mexico show with Cain Velasquez versus Fabrizio Verdum. But if you were looking at 2014, Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo would definitely be a pay-per-view right there on its own with possibly a weak undercard, if you know what I'm saying. But now it just seems like they have still the same amount of talent or more or less the same stars and fighters. They're just sort of rationing them out differently. Before, I feel like in 2014, they'd be like, let's make this a decent fight night and let's make this a pretty good pay-per-view. Now it's more like, okay, fight night's coming up. What city are we in? We're going to give all local talent and we're going to make that city enjoy it. We're going to have a, decent main event. And then it's like pay-per-views coming up, double title fights, streamers, party hats, balloons, bring out all the talent, the floats and the parades and everything. And I like that because if I'm going to complain about too many events, I'd rather it be that the events that I'm spending $60 on are worth $60. You know what I mean? A little bit unfortunate what happened with UFC 184. I'm still excited for the card. I just wish it was a double title fight. No disrespect whatever to Raquel Pennington and Holly Holm. It's going to be a great co-main event. And I'm excited about Ronda Rousey versus Cat Zingano. But looking at all these other pay-per-views, I'm willingly going to be handing over, my $60 or $50 or however much it costs these days. So, just my 2 cents on that. Honestly, I think that's probably it for us for another week. It's been an awesome week. Really, really, really want to say thank you to our guests this week. Obviously, Stipe Miocic, Raquel Pennington, Henri Hooft, and of course, one of our favorites, Pat Cummins. I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but I love it every time that guy comes on. Big thanks to all those guys. And we're going to have another great show next week. As always, follow us on Twitter at SubmissionAUS. Subscribe if you enjoy the show. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, including a lot of content, especially when UFC Adelaide rolls around. Video interviews coming out the wazoo, weigh-ins, Q&A, all that kind of stuff. Dennis, before we go, any other final words for the fans?
Yeah, guys, throw us down a comment if you're listening on YouTube. Who do you want to see Frank Mir fight next? Do you want to see this Brock Lesnar fight? And if you do, who do you think wins that rubber match? Put it down in the comment section below or contact us via Twitter, as Casper said, at SubmissionAUS. We love hearing from the fans. And also give us any feedback on the interviews. We love hearing what you guys think about it. We've been able to meet some cool guys on Twitter. Casper, we met this one man who told us about how he was listening to all of our episodes back to back in his mechanic shop. So we love hearing all that stuff. And if any of our episodes make your day go quicker, hey, that means that we've done our job. So just contact us and let us know what you're thinking, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, every time we do speak to someone on Twitter, it really means a lot to us, and same with YouTube comments as well. And the other thing, let us know, guys, what do you think about these cards? Do you think they're watered down? Are you happy with the way the pay-per-views are being structured? Till then, guys, that's us for another week. We'll catch you next week.